Yo, this is Alex from AlphaDestiny, and today I'm bringing you a part 2 interview with Meckanimal. For those who don't know, I've been following for years, and he's a guy that I highly recommend you all subscribe to. Real deal, natural muscle, focuses on calisthenics and balanced performance overall. So we're going to talk about many things going back and forth, and I think you're going to learn a lot from this discussion, not only in terms of maximizing your strength gains, but just being an overall badass athlete. How you doing today, Meckanimal?
I'm doing well, Mr. Alex. Always delighted to get back to your channel. Always a fruitful conversation we have out here.
Yeah, we touch upon deep topics and we really get into the specifics. So that's what we're going to do today. And the first thing I'd like to ask you is I noticed you've been doing the conjugate system with your body weight training workouts. So, as someone who focuses on calisthenics, what drew you to that way of training? Because I see a lot of the elites that you look up to and I look up to that don't use this model of working out. Usually it's a bit more minimalistic or based off linear progression. So, what was it about conjugate that you wanted to try it out, and what have your results been so far?
The reason why I decided to try the conjugate is because back in the days, every time I had tried a linear approach for powerlifting movements, I always end up stalling. And part of the reason would be like me not using the proper equipment, like a belt, for example, or even a knee sleeve, that I was highly against because I wanted that raw approach of training, not realizing that recovery to be taken in consideration using a belt is very crucial in the process. And it's stupid that I failed to see that the elite have used belts and knee sleeves to reach those extreme level of performance. And me, my idiot ass, thinking that I can reinvent the wheel, and now I'm gonna get there just doing like the raw way. Like, and I think that's the idea that's still crippling number of people out there right now who try to stay in that strictly calisthenics or strictly this and strictly that, and they refuse to evolve.
Yeah,
So that's beside the point. So because I wanted to actually excel in those barbell movements in conjunction of getting back into weighted calisthenics, because like since 2015, I've stopped weighted calisthenics because I felt like lagging behind in terms of skills,
hmm,
and the weighted calisthenics reminded me too much of powerlifting, and the essence of calisthenics itself, I wasn't feeling it. And I wanted to get back to skill and master the skills, even though I got heavier and the skills got harder and harder. I wanted to master the skills before I get back into weighted calisthenics. And I had a lot of influence on my friend Freddie, incredible athlete, Lou Fred, that's his
yep,
handle on what you call him on IG. And he's just one of these guys. I mean, he doesn't put too much emphasis on barbell movement, but he still has a great level of performance on it. On top of having some ridiculous amount of skill mastery, like planche and front lever, endurance wise, muscle up, and his power is just ridiculous one arm pull up. And the reason why he is not excelling in barbell movement, he pretty much got no interest in it. So we're two different people. Me, I like general strength. I just want to be
yeah,
as badass as possible. He has the ability to because he's like a genius athlete and trains hard. So if he was interested in excelling in barbell, 100% sure he would be one of the freakish guys out there.
oh, no doubt.
Just like Baki, for example, who just out of this world, because he figured the proper recipe that worked for him to mix weight calisthenics and skill. Granted, he might have had some background in gymnastics when he was younger. That's how he got some of the skills that he has right now, and he was able to maintain them while pursuing absolute strength, which is working pretty well for him. So, because of people like Becky, I wanted to get back to weighted calisthenics because seeing him all the time, it reminded me of my old self
Yeah,
that started. And back in the days when we had like 225 in the deep, he was like, oh man, that's incredible. And then before my eyes, 2016, 2017, those people just kept at it. And every year they just reached new heights of standard.
it's
So
crazy.
now they're so far ahead. I'm like, you know what? I need to get back to it. And even himself, we talk often. it's like, when are you gonna join the l'écurie? Écurie, like a question, like in French. Like, when are you gonna join I mean, the l'écurie? I mean, because he wants to program give me a program that I can follow, so I can catch up. And I'm like, nah, I'm just working on finishing my conjugate thing at least for a year before I can entertain the idea. Because why change something that's working?
Right.
It's working pretty well, even though at times it got really hard and grindy. But that's just part of the process. You're gonna reach the hurdles, and you just have to stick tweak it around volume here and there, and
Yeah.
then the next thing you know, then you pass it. So I mean, I made a promise that as soon as I was done running my 1 year, I will reach out to him so we can work on something. And that's like in the past few months that we talked. But before that, seeing him and his teammates in like the SWAT Academy going crazy stuff, and on top of that, then they're not weaklings when it comes to performance. Because one thing is to excel in weight calisthenics, because any power lifter who trains with a powerlifting cycles
Hmm.
and prioritize weighted pull-up and weighted dips who most likely feel the same results. But the lack of skill, that's what distinguish like a street lifter that should be with a power lifter. So the fact that they can combine both makes it outstanding, and I can rock with that. And yeah, so that's because of that. So to sum it up, I wanted to resume the weighted calisthenics that so much worked on back in the days and had to stop to focus on the skill, and how to figure the proper programming that can mix both powerlifting and weighted calisthenics. And weighted calisthenics is so close to powerlifting in terms of, what you call maxing out,
Exactly.
that I figure that, what, I think I figure a way to combine all of it together and follow like the conventional protocol for lower body, which is powerlifting work, and uh, unlike powerlifting that has one upper body movement, weighted calisthenics has two upper body movement. So all I will have to do is just alternate every other week, weighted pull up and weighted dips, the same way on the lower body. The deadlift and the squats are being alternating to come up with something similar and see. Let's give it a try. But the difference is it, the progress has been different when it comes to weight calisthenics, uh, as opposed to the lower body part.
In
You,
what
you
ways
can
has it
only
been different?
you can only see the difference in the quality of the movement, because that's another thing. Like with your body English, the way you twist yourself to make a lift happen can alter how much strength you produce to perform that movement from A to B. So the main difference that I could see is from the beginning at start, my body the form got cleaner and cleaner, and also the weight obviously got higher and higher. But I put a cap on my weighted pull up, for example, being 180 for plate, because at the beginning I could do a really ugly 180, but in a competition that will not count at all.
Hmm.
And even though right now the 180 that I have still won't count in the competition, the top range is missing. That's the one that I need to work on. And that's why on the seventh phase, the seventh metal cycle, I try to incorporate more of the top hold to kind of build some strength on top out there. And again, everybody is different. It's gonna take the time it's gonna take.
Yeah.
If I had a reference to be able to compare, then I would know at least if I was doing something wrong, or if I was just on the right path. And it's just certainly for certain people, just harder to have access to. So, but it was a fruitful, productive journey of 10 months so far. I'm 2 months shy of a year. And yeah, I'm looking forward to see the final numbers and see how much I've gained pound wise, or tonnage wise from the beginning to the end on the main lift that I've been working on.
Right.
So that's the reason why I started using the conjugate method. Yeah.
Right. So you were only doing the skill work, focusing on that, and then decided to get back into weighted calisthenics and figured that conjugate would be a good starting point. And through doing that, you identified individual weaknesses that you started working on, and you tweaked it in a way that combines powerlifting and bodyweight training into one. And so
Exactly.
far, the results have been really good. And what I'm curious about, I know you want to complete the full year, but what are some of the major improvements you've seen so far, muscle wise, and also numbers that just skyrocketed by following the system? Because I know that you did make a video about your 18-inch arms. I'm curious, were they a lot smaller before you ran conjugate? And for your dips and pull-ups, I know you keep that cap at 180 pounds for the pull-up. What about the dip? Do you stop it at 5 plates, or do you try to go above? And how frequent do you test the conventional movements,
Okay.
maxing out?
Okay. So uh, for the size in terms of hypertrophy, I could not really tell you because it's usually the last of the parameter that I pay attention to when I'm training because I've reached the size that I desire long ago. The
Right.
rest is just the side effect. Sometimes I wish I could trade some muscle for no efficiency, so I can be a super badass strong guy, because I feel like for the size I have, I should be stronger than that. It's
You're
just that
pretty jacked, man.
I just have to keep training, and it makes me even feel not ashamed. I'm just self-conscious that, man, I'm strong, but I could be a lot stronger with the size that I have in the aspect of powerlifting. In the aspect of bodyweight training, obviously, I'm up there, not many can do, but for in terms of specific, yeah, I mean, I have a lot of work to do. But again, I have not trained that. If you want to even put hours spent, I mean, training barbell movement, like seriously, it's probably less than 3 years. Like if I have to
Really?
combine together, because I've had like cluster of uh, 3 months here, 6 months here. Because anytime I peaked on barbell movement, my nervous system just fried, and I couldn't understand that was because I was not using the belt. Because I'll go
Wow.
hard, I'll peak, but no matter how much what you call how meticulous I am about programming and recovery. It's just the fact that anytime I push past a certain level, like when I reach a point that I'm tired, I cannot I feel like a baby. I cannot lift even the most basic load, and mentally it affects me. And I'm usually like, fuck it, let me just focus on the thing that I feel
Exactly.
happy about, and I always fall back to what I'm good at. And but this time, because uh, I was trying something completely different, I changed my approach completely. You know what? To be good at powerlifting movement, just train up as powerlifters. So I'm gonna use the belt, and at some point I'm gonna use the knee sleeves, just because sometimes, as no matter how strong your knees are, after that much volume, it might just start aching, and it's just something that happened, and uh, that alone can keep you from pushing because you have to push even moderately to avoid detraining. And the problem is when you're not using the equipment that can help you, like cruising through a phase of, active recovery, you
Yeah.
might just end up detraining, and you're like, man, I took that long of a break. How come it's not enough for me to feel the difference in strength? So it's really like it's interesting. I mean, how things have changed, and obviously I was aware of certain things. Now I'm aware of more things, and I'm using all that and combined together to keep pushing forward.
Yeah.
So that's what you got in terms of hypertrophy. I think I've gained like ounces of mass a pound because I have not had a desk ascent in a long time. And I knew that when I was around 188 pound, I had a certain leanness, and I knew the body fat that I will be having. And lately, I've been like around 195. Obviously, I'm holding more water. I'm feeling so. But I feel like when I'm 190, 191, I have the leanness that I had like in
Yeah.
2017, being 188 or so. So I feel like if I have gained 1 or 2 pounds of mass, which is a lot,
It's
considering
a
that I've
lot
been
as a
training
natural
for
and your training
for a long
experience.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not even really interested in getting more. I can just keep that and just getting stronger. That would be good for me because any amount of mass I put on is just gonna slow me down. But I think I can do fine because I'm still below 200, and people like back here are like 210, 215, and ridiculously stronger than I
Yeah.
am. So not saying that we have the same feature, but here I come kind of baby backy. I can see my structure being similar to his. Uh, and nerve efficiency wise, I think he probably got it on me. But all I can do is keep training my the skill and keep pushing, finding what works for me and how I can recover efficiently enough and keep training without getting injured.
Exactly.
But it can be done. The weight is not it's an issue, but it can be done if you believe in the process enough.
Yeah.
And in terms of cap weight wise, the reason why I've maintained 180 for the pull up is obvious. The form was really bad at the beginning, and I knew that would be like that would be how you call it, that would be a breakthrough for me to be able to move those 4 plate clean. It always been a dream of mine. I always come close, and the form is never what it's supposed to be. And I'm like, okay, let me see how my form is, because if it comes to moving from the bottom up, you can try, maybe get stuck halfway, quarter way. I mean, right now I probably could pick 5 plates and probably have a quarter rep, but that's not a pull. And even the launch of the movement itself, by having your feet flaring out before you can regrab it, is so many things that go into it.
Right.
So the load itself is not, oh, you have to do it in a proper manner. That's why I decided to. Even after 6 months, I was frustrated because it still was not feeling light in the 180. I'm like, am I doing something wrong? Is it because I've seen some other people? I mean, they don't seem that
Yeah.
that stronger, but I guess some people just
There's some
are
freaky
good with
guys
it.
out there, man.
There's freaky guys out there, so 4 plate is they just move it like it's nothing. So I mean, by now I'm good with controlling my ego, but still, there's so much you can do, man. After a while, with the mindset of going at it as a warrior, and you give your best, and you still don't feel like you're getting the reward that you feel deserving, you can start like comparing yourself to other people easily, and it can even derail your protocol sometime because you're so eager to get there, and you, even though you had a plan that works, you tend to want to twisting around just because. And but so far I've been able to stick to what I plan, and that's why I wanted to have a conversation to kind of in this last phase is I probably have 2 more phases of my mesocycle is usually 6 weeks, so I have like two more mesocycle before I reach the end of what I was planning. Trying to see my next cycles how I will plan my max effort, and that's why I wanted to have a conversation to see based on your experience how you would think this and this will fall into this and this place, and that's that for the max effort for weighted pull up. When it comes to the max effort for the dip, it's more like mental, I think, because I tore my pec in 2013, and like he was on the I think on the 205 or 225 that I tore the pec. Like I had it the day before, and I wanted to do it the next day and film it. And I was getting ready for this competition in New York, the weight calisthenics. So it was a lot of volume that I was doing, and back then, I didn't know much about programming. It was just going hard, just get
Yeah.
the reps and sets in. And it was 2013, good, 2014 or 13, good old days. And what happened is I went down, coming up, and I felt the pop, and that's it. And it took me out for like 18 months. And I think that's how my channel started dying when I stopped posting because I felt like if I couldn't post anything hardcore, there's no need to put anything. But that's beside the point. So since that happened, like 2 years later, I redeemed myself and I got to 25 out of the way, and I even got up to 235.
Yeah.
So the funny part is, for the past 10 months, I've been training. I still haven't matched the 235 yet. And that was like 5 years, I mean, 6 years ago that I did 235. I'm a lot stronger. And yeah, there's no reason why I shouldn't, unless either total workload wise, maybe I need a proper, like a proper peaking for that alone. And take off the workload of any other things to probably pick to what my real strength will be. Because at any given time, I can do 225 now,
Exactly.
which is, yeah, maxing, like, be able to max that every other week or every week if I wanted to. Actually, I could, like 225. That means my ultimate max, if I peak for even like a mini peak for just once mesocycle, I could possibly do more than 235 or more.
Probably.
But still, I feel like for 10 months, I mean, I should have gotten much more than that if mentally I'm not feeling comfortable enough. Because at time I'll go, you know how people use the stretch reflex at the bottom.
Yep.
Because I tore my pec
Yeah.
on the way back up, I don't use the stretch reflex anymore. All my dip kind of look like a pause dip. Like I need to pause for half a second at least.
Wow.
So the whole movement is kind of control, and the whole movement then I explode. So I
Make it
could use
hard
the
on
stretch
yourself.
reflex and do a lot more than I do right now. But because I don't feel safe, I still have that trauma. I just rather control. And sometimes I'll go at the bottom if I don't feel that I have all I need to fully control out. I just bail out.
Right.
But a lot of time, this way the thing you have to commit to it from the get go, from the bottom up. You have to be there. You know what? When I get down, I have to get back up by any means. In my mindset is when I go down, if I don't feel safe enough, I'm not going up. So that's how
Okay.
I've been doing my way there. So it's gonna take away the intensity of commitment whenever I get on the load. Because you see a lot of people, they come down, they yank it from the bottom,
Yeah.
and they just push us hard. For me, before I go back on pushing hard, I have to know 100% that I feel so strong that I can get out fully. Otherwise, I don't go.
Okay.
So the good side is I won't ever tear my pec again. That I know that for sure with
100%.
that mindset. The other side is, well, you might not get strong as fast as you could if you were to get rid of that mindset.
Yeah.
But I'm fine with it, man. It's not. I'm
Yeah.
not trying
Like.
to be world champion of weighted dips, so I take my time, man.
Yeah. It sounds to me like you've gotten a lot smarter over the years, and you've completely dropped your ego on two things, right? One is you trust the process, and that's why you've committed yourself to 12 months, even if things are slow and it can be frustrating at times. And the second thing is that you don't allow yourself to go beyond your current capabilities if it risks injury. In the case of the dip,
Yeah,
you keep mentioning how everything is under control and you probably could do more weight, but because there's that past trauma, it's like you know better than to screw around and possibly leave yourself out for even longer because that would be worse, right? But what's also
yeah,
interesting is that because you're running the conjugate system, I feel, correct me if I'm wrong, it's good on your psychology because you're doing different variations. So week one, you could do a ring dip. Another week could be a longer pause dip. A week after that, maybe a weighted push up. So because you're rotating and still getting stronger, you know that the muscle and the performance is there. Just that you got to peak for the dip when the time is right. So I think in your case, the higher exercise selection is good for your mind.
yeah, indeed, yeah. And being able to, a lot of people have like to create identify correlation ratios between how much percentage of your normal dip is the weighted, I mean the is the ring dip,
Yeah, it's hard
how
to
much
quantify that.
percentage of the safety squat bar, I mean squat bar squat is of your normal back squat. So the interesting part is I was able to, as I perform and I see the numbers, I was able to have a general idea of the correlation. So I will use that in the future when I hit certain number to assess, okay, where should I be at the moment, given that I can do this, what will be my normal thing. It's not always like perfect, but it gave me an idea to keep going, even though sometimes it felt like the numbers are not going the way I wanted. But when I get to hit the variation, because some variation will go up, but the main lift still is not moving. Or sometimes the main lift go up and you expect the variation to go drastically up, but it's still not meaning. But overall, they're still within the same vicinity
Exactly. Yeah.
of percentage. So that's good to know that I can use that information to help out people who are running this kind of protocol. But I can tell like it's very definitely it was annoying to be able to just to have to stick to that load for that long.
Mm.
And I think when I started on the weighted pull up, I could do clearly 135 without any bad English. And then anything past that, I had to tweak myself. So I could say that I moved from 135 to like 170 right now with good chin over the bar. So that's a lot of weight when you think about it.
Yeah.
But because I knew in the past that I reached like 160, and even though the form was not good, mentally I feel like I have not progressed much. But when it comes to quality of movement from 135, because even now 160, I can do that with good form, right? But 160 was the cap back in the days, and I will do that with some tweak.
Yeah.
So it's obvious that I'm tremendously stronger when it comes to that.
Yep.
But for me, I feel like because I have to compare myself to other extreme great athletes, I feel like I'm not really
Yeah.
doing anything, you see. So that's the hard part, you know. And we live in a social media world where at the click of a button, you can see the edge of the universe, another freak athlete, and you think, I mean, everybody walking around like dipping or pulling this amount of weight. When
Yeah.
yeah, the average person doesn't. You just have access to them by clicks. That's the only problem, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
and I'm lucky to be living around Ashton too. Ashton Ruska, crazy powerlifter, man. We go to the same powerlifting gym. Yeah, he's like, I think he's gonna be one of the great in his category because this guy is like in the 800. I mean, past 800 like squats, and he was like he competed in 220 something pound category.
mhm.
Like people scream about Larry Will. I'm like, how are people like him that nobody know of? That's how you know that there must be some crazy freaks out there
I
that
believe it.
nobody heard of, no social media attention, but ridiculously strong. And you're like, wow, this is crazy. This is crazy.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
once in a while you see guys like that come out of nowhere and then they blow up very
Mm-hmm.
quickly, but they've been strong their whole life.
They've been strong their whole life. Yeah,
My favorite
exactly.
is when you see an older lifter who shows up, 45, 55, and then
Yeah.
he's just blowing everybody out of the water, especially if he's natty. But that's hard to come by
Yeah.
these days.
That's hard to come by, yeah. And then that's hard to know if the person is telling the truth because sometimes those numbers are crazy. And you're like, it can be natural, but I'm hoping he's telling the truth because
Yeah.
I only wish you could tell the truth. And I mean, you could, everybody could tell the truth and we'll be in a more peaceful environment, you know. Yeah, because if you're not telling the truth and you give false hope to people who actually, striving
Yeah.
to achieve that, and even worse, hope to the people who don't have the ability to even be average. Because I think majority of people who will be average will not have crazy amount of performance. That would be good compared to the average, person. But reach like all this crazy height, it's not gonna happen, man.
Well, that's
Yeah.
why, like you were talking about comparing yourself to other people, right?
Mm-mm.
Obviously, you're on a very high level, but there's people who are
Right.
even beyond that, right? And it can be frustrating when you look at them because there's such a huge gap. Like I can't even
Mm.
imagine these guys are dipping over 300 pounds. That's
Yeah.
insane, you know.
Same. Yeah.
I you
And
know,
as I say, I'm deep in five and they're on
yeah,
eight.
it's like,
I'm like, what the hell did I do wrong in my life? Like
that's
it's just like, yeah, but it's inspiring though.
it.
When the people are not full of shit and then I snake call a salesman, I don't have a problem with that. It's inspiring. It just makes me chuckle and laugh because I can ridicule myself,
Yeah.
and be like, all right, so next party means let's get to work. Yeah, but it's
Because
interesting. Like make you feel like a baby.
yeah, but like there's levels to this. For example, the
Yeah.
pull-ups, you're having trouble 180, but the
Mhm.
world record, like this is number one. It used to be 220, 225. So you're not that
Yeah.
far off from the
Oh,
original
oh,
record.
that's true. Yeah.
Now it's in the, I don't even know
I
what
think
it
it's
is.
one. I think it's 110, right? Isn't it one? How much is it? 110?
110
I
kilos.
know, and
I
110
that
kilo.
guy
Yeah, 110
Matthew
kilogram.
put up
Oh,
some.
Matthew's light. Oh,
Yeah.
Matthew's light. He did six. He did six. That's 120 kilogram. I think he did. Matthew's light.
Okay.
Yeah, he's crazy.
I
He's like on 190 kilogram on the deep now,
yeah I
and I'm like, damn, is he natural? He could, like, he could. I mean, I have to believe because I don't live with him. I don't see him doing anything. So for me, unless I'm competing with you, and I feel like you're gonna rob me from my work, me being natural. I don't really have a reason to try to fight if I don't have obvious like sign. But
right.
I mean, if it's just because you're like ridiculously strong, I'll just give you the benefit of the doubt because sooner or later we pay that. Start seeing people dropping like flies, dying in the late 40s and 50s. You might be young now and think like, yeah, you get all the attention, you get all the fame. But after all those likes and compliments,
Yeah,
those people go back home and they take care of their business. They don't really care about you.
they don't.
So unless you're making extreme amount of money that you're gonna invest for your family in the future, if it just comes down to the like and this quote unquote fame that you get from being able to do all these things, I think it's pretty ridiculous and sad because you're gonna have a long life and it can be miserable
Yeah.
if you have a bad quality. That's if you don't die, right? So I feel like people just don't understand, and
Why?
but when you know what you want, you just stay in your lane, because life is well beyond just lifting this amount of weight. A lot of people don't really care about how strong you are. Actually, they want to look good.
That's true.
So people rather look good than know that you're so strong. And again, you have the people who fool you using PEDs, give you the false, on the false pretense that you can reach that level, just doing the cookie cutter exercises that they do and getting sweaty and starving yourself, being shredded, and they think like, oh yeah, that person lives like that. That's not how they are in real life. I mean, when they eat dinner and they're not filming, they have a sticking stomach going out protruded because
Yeah.
that's how life works. When you eat, your stomach is full of food. It's gonna be rounded until you digest. You're not nobody working on flex six packs all the time, and nah, people
No.
have, but it works though. The
It
marketing
it's
works.
all it's all about marketing, bro. And what you said
Right.
before is so true that nobody cares about what you do.
Yeah, they
And
don't.
and I
They don't.
think the easiest way we can prove this is when somebody gets injured. Look what
Hmm.
happens to the person's channel or their social media platform or whatever. The views go whoop, you know?
Yeah,
And they're
yeah.
like, "Oh, we're praying for a speedy recovery. You're going to do amazing."
Uh,
But they all F off, and then you're old news. So that's why
no one knows.
you got to always
They're
one
on to
up
they're
yourself.
on to the they're on to the next sensation.
Yes. So that's why you got to be the best version of you and know that you're on the right path, that you're not trying to search for validation and you're trusting what you're doing. Because if you're lifting to impress someone else, okay, they might be initially impressed. Oh, you're a beast. They'll say little comments like that, but they're not important to you, and
And
they don't really care. So that's why you gotta, and looks do matter more if you want to talk about impressing people anyway. So that's
yeah.
why like you gotta find the training style that works for you and what goals are best, and that's one like you resonate with calisthenics and you combine that with some
Hmm.
powerlifting stuff,
More
and that's your
powerlifting
default. You
stuff.
always go back to it, and it's the same with me. I love bodyweight training. There's other sports that just don't appeal to me, and if I were to
Right.
do that just for social media, I'd rather not.
Like people want you to do squat, for example, when you're not really, it doesn't resonate with you. There's no reason why you would do that. Like people don't understand. Like there's no typical standard when it comes to training.
It's all
You do
arbitrary.
whatever you feel like you need, and that's about it. Even people who don't train legs and do only calisthenics, I mean, unless you're telling me that okay, that person is stronger or this and that, so I can be objective and be like, okay, because they're not moving, they're not training legs. So anything that's leverage involves will be much easier if you don't have the mass to counter. It's common sense. And even handstand, you would think it's still a matter of balancing like a lower body
Yeah.
who is yeah, it makes everything easier when you have a light lower body. That's why gymnasts don't need to train that. They only do enough to be explosive to jump, and even then they have the recalling floor to help them, spring out more, take advantage of the explosion. So all they have to do is drill the technique and all that. They don't need that pure, explosion from the leg necessarily. And yeah, it's just simple. And somebody just want to excel and be the specialist. I mean, that's fine. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
for
okay.
sure.
Well, I don't know. It's just people like to compare. Um, that's what feeds the algorithm. And people just like to gossip about this person is stronger than this, and they want the fan. I mean, the idol to be the ultimate this. Other than that, I think, I mean, unless you directly attacked, I don't find any. It's good if you like it, that's good.
That's it.
Yeah. So, but for objective comparison, yeah, we can involve all these parameters and all these things. But ultimately, for me, and that's just my opinion, I want to be as balanced as I can.
Yeah.
And again, what's the definition of balance? For me, I may have my balance definition may be different than another person's balance definition. I just want to work everything, and I happen to do everything that I can in my power
That you're able to do.
without having to clutter myself with, I mean, too much stuff, because you need to still be selective in whatever you choose to train. Otherwise, you end up not being good at anything.
Well,
So,
it's a spectrum, you know. Like in your case,
mhm,
the one thing you're not balanced on, quote unquote, would probably be Olympic weightlifting. But I don't think you care
yeah,
about that. But when
I
you do
don't
the
care about it.
exactly. But when you do the
At least for now, no.
yeah.
Yeah.
But when you do the weighted calisthenics, that helps the skill training. It helps the body weight stuff for high volume, and it helps your weight training. So by getting a stronger weighted dip, I'm sure you can come in and bench a good amount right off the bat. So there's always going to be transference in a general sense. That's not
Mhm.
only for hypertrophy, but also strength on all kinds of stuff, whether it's moving your own
Yeah.
body weight or something else. And it's all very similar
Right.
stuff, you know. And
And yeah, go ahead, finish.
no, I was just gonna say, like, even when you do the rings, that
Mhm.
helps the bar stuff, and then the bars help the
Right.
rings. So it's all the same family of things that you care about, and it just works.
It works, yeah. And it's fun too.
Yeah, hella fun.
I think that's something people will ignore too. You need to do something that's fun for you. And if it's not fun, I mean, I guess unless you have a medical condition that require you to do certain movement and you have to, if it's not fun and you really have to drag yourself to do it just because this person says so, I don't think it's a smart thing. So do find something that's fun in terms of uh, what you call general conditioning, and I mean, and just do it to be active.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the most important. That's the most important thing. And Olympic lifting, like I will get back to it until I won't get back until I get my 500 squat and 600 deadlift. So those are the the goals that I gave myself to reach, the short-term goals. And even if I reach those goals for the rest of my life, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm like, to me, it's just like I'm not too demanding. Like I just need certain because it's not my main thing.
I get it.
So
Yeah.
I will stay with that, and whatever comes after is fine. It's a bonus,
Yeah.
and I will just get back to the body weight stuff and trying to master my body even more, do some figure and stuff like that. Because I know those are the things that will carry me for the rest of my life if I keep training. So I'm not too you know. But yeah, Olympic lifting is
Yeah.
fun.
So one thing about balance, I think that it puts it in a greater context, right? So you're happy with certain performance on some lifts, but it's not your main domain, but it's still
Mm-hmm.
a really high level that it is in
Yeah.
fact balance. So if you're a
Hmm.
calisthenics athlete and you're able to squat 500 pounds, yeah, it's not 600 like maybe another powerlifter in your weight class, but it's still a respectable squat. And therefore you
Right.
can't say that you have a weak lower body. So that's still
Mhm.
balance, but you have your specialty on the skill work, the
On
rings,
scale
the
work,
weight. So that
yeah.
takes the priority. That's the majority, but you're never weak at other stuff. And the same goes for
Other
weights.
stuff.
Maybe your bench is
Hmm.
between 315 and 350. It's not 405, but it's still really up there.
It's still right up there, yeah. And it's interesting. I never officially hit like a 315 bench. I think a 310 is what I did in 2015. And since then, I've not really focused on like like a big cycle, and I did like squat every day, bench every day, deadlift every day for 1 month. I think that's when I peaked in that month
Yeah.
to like the 310, and that was it. And later on, like maybe for a month or so, I do, and then I reach 300, but I never really peaked to reach like 315. So I think when I get back to that, it will be interesting to see
Wow.
how I can in 3 months how I can get to. Yeah, so that's interesting to know.
Yeah.
While at the same time, my overhead press was 225, 230. So I have a stronger overhead press than the bench itself, and that's granted, I gave some more work in the overhead press at that time because I wanted to see the transfer to the handstand push up. And it's funny, it hadn't really helped.
That's crazy.
I just had to train the skill of overhead press when, I mean, the skill of handstand push up when I work with Metin at Little Bit Stem, who programmed my handstand work. So obviously, he's good at more of the handstand stuff. So that's when I actually broke through the mastery and I actually mastered the handstand because before that, before the 2018, it was just on and off, and I would have a janky janky form of handstand, and I was just kicking, and sometimes it catch, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah,
But
it's
since I work with him, yeah, it was really gruesome. Sometimes twice a day and 6 days a week. It was a lot of volume, a lot of work, and 6 months, and then everything started like showing. So it was good. It was well worth
yeah.
it.
Well,
So
it's definitely more
yeah.
technical movement, and even myself,
Mm.
I could overhead press 2 plates, but my handstand push-ups, they don't look too clean at
Yeah,
all, even though the
it's
shoulder strength is
technical.
there. So I find that's one of the movements where the skills got to be down. Even
Yeah,
the rings turned out dips, I find you can be strong at the straight bar, but if you never
right.
practice that movement, it's not gonna look the cleanest. So some stuff
That's
is
true.
very specific like that.
It's specific. And I wonder how much somebody like Becky, for example, can do on the ring D.
Should be a
You know,
lot.
he got it should be a lot. So it would be cool to see, right? But and I think he last time I checked, he was not proficient. He doesn't use the ring much except for the muscle up and iron cross stuff, basic stuff. So he
Yeah.
never really used the ring. So I would be good to see the transference to how much load he could safely move because. Speaking of that, like this week, like 2 days ago, I mean, it was a time for my my weight ring deep, and uh, I was supposed to go for like 170 because 165 I had 6 weeks ago, and for some reason, because I wanted to switch up totally the way I approach max effort in the next cycle. I just went for 4 plates for 180. So from 160, when I hit 160, it flew. So I felt really strong. So I'm like, you know what? Instead of just being conservative, I'm like, I don't really care about the number. I feel like I can get the 170. Let me try how 180 will be. So I just went straight to 4 plate. It was good because I got out of the bottom pretty nice and strong. But when I reached the last quarter, like before the last quarter of the rep to get up to fully control, I just didn't feel it. And
Yeah.
like you said, I shut down. I didn't want to fight, and yeah, so I don't play around with this thing. But it felt good. Then it's from 180 instead of going to 170 and try to do that. I'm like, nah, I still want to be close to one because I was so close. Let me try 175, and I tried 175. Same thing. I went just slightly higher this time, and then shut down. So after that, I'm like, you know what? I think I'm good. I'm not gonna waste my energy and try
Yeah.
170
Well, that's the thing.
because if I
There's
fail that, then mentally it's gonna be bad for me for next time. So I'm like, you know
yeah.
what? My mind, I know that I have it. So next time, if I ever do, I'm gonna try like 172 and a half or 175, depending on how I feel.
Yeah. Like,
So it's getting there.
so I found the same thing to be true. Like if you overshoot your max by a little bit, or even if you were capable and you grind it out a little bit too much, even if you drop the weight to what you were initially supposed to do, you'll
It's
fail it.
done.
So like in your
Done
case,
deal.
you probably could have done the 170, no question about it.
Yeah.
But because you did the
Right.
180, it screwed you over for that set, and then it's
Screw
game
everything.
over.
Yeah.
And the more you keep trying to attempt that, it just
The more
makes
you're
that
gonna
hole
feel,
deeper.
yeah, because you
Yeah,
reach that threshold of efforts, and once you couldn't do it, all that potential is gone for the day. So no matter how, unless you go back like 70% down, then I mean 30% down, then you might be able to get it. But if you're still gonna stay in the 90% range, and you really grind the really heavier load, then once you miss it, it's done. And it
exactly.
works. It's like that because even on my back squats. I tried 3 times because I was with friends. When I failed the 440, my friend was like, "Nah, I think you got it, man. You went a little too low. I think you got it." I'm like, "Nah, the way I feel, I don't want to go." And they're like, "Okay, no." And then I went again, and then I felt like it was good,
Uh,
so close. And they took him to help me, and I failed it. I'm like, oh, man. And he wanted me to go again. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna try again. Then I unrack it, step back. I'm like, nah. If I go down,
you're
I'm not
gonna
coming up. Then I re-rack it. So
exactly.
since then, I really like I've been really strict about it. I
Yeah,
don't go for it anymore. So you can see in my last post, like when I feel good enough to go heavier, I step out to see how I feel. When I don't feel it, I just re-rack because I don't want to feel
yeah,
that
yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. Max effort training is a skill, and you get really good at it after months of doing it. You figure it out, and probably the biggest thing for me was not sticking to arbitrary numbers
hmm
like 4 plates, 5 plates, 4.5.
hmm
You sometimes you got to make like a 2.5 pound jump, and that's it. You put on those little winter
Right.
plates, and that like you
That's
put the
good
smallest
enough.
increments possible. You kind of
That's true.
know, and if you limit your attempts to like 3 good ones, then it
hmm
forces you to be strict with what you'll hit.
hmm Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and I've done that too. Like a lot. I mean, even on the last the ring dip, it's been like 5 pound increments so far. In general, it's 5 pound. I go by 5%
Okay.
of load every cycle. And given that I have enough variety, it's like usually I meet the same lifts every 6 weeks or so. At the beginning of the cycles on the lower body, I had a lot more variety. Sometimes it's after 8 or 10 weeks that I hit the same variation again. So over time, I discarded some of those variations that I felt like they were draining me, like the snatch grip deadlift and other form of like the rack pull,
Yeah.
below knee. Those ones were draining me, and I had them like pretty much at the end of my cycles. So thinking it will be fine, but it still would affect the next 2 weeks. And
Yeah.
I just discard some of them because I was learning. So it was the first time I tried the one that I felt would help, and over time I eliminated the one that I felt would not help me. And even now I don't deadlift anymore. Like for the past 3 months, or the past 2 cycles, I ditched the deadlift and I just
Just
focus on
squats.
variation of the squat, and I still do speed deadlift because I know that will not tax me. So
Ah.
it'll be interesting to see. Uh, like in 2 months again, I'm gonna just stop for like 6 months deadlift, and then when I feel good enough, because the thing about deadlift for max effort is a hit or miss. Sometimes you feel amazing. Sometimes it's just so shot that even like uh, even like 365 will feel heavy, and 405 was supposed to be a light one feels ridiculously, demanding. And it was playing on my mental. So the way I set up my cycle is that I'll feel like when I come down to my deficit deadlift, I felt good, amazing. I even got to, 45, on the deficit deadlift. But when it was time for the deadlift itself, and I knew that the deficit was supposed to be much harder, those days I always feel fried and I can't do much.
Interesting.
So it became annoying. I figured that maybe I was not programming well, like positioning those weeks well so they work in symbiotes. And I tried to shift them around, but for some reason, when it was time for the normal deadlift, even 2 weeks after having an amazing, what you call 'em, deficit, it was like, yeah, I couldn't do much. So I figured that maybe I was still recovering for that deficit. That's why. So I tried to shift them around. I only tried one time to ship them around. It was still not giving me what I would hope. So that's when I decided, you know what, my squat is going well. Let me just focus on that and trying to maximize that. And I know that there's always a transference of increase
Exactly.
of squat to deadlift. So why not just focus on that and then just keep working on speed work, which will not tax my
Yeah.
spine.
And you keep
And
your
then
movements.
eventually, when I feel good enough, I can test it and see what's the new max would have been.
Hmm.
Or when I need that, I will probably have a proper picking for that and then go for it. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just something about the deadlift, man. It's
it
just
is.
very taxing,
It is.
and you don't really know. It's not like black and white. What can you do? You can do identical procedure to different outcome within a certain amount of time. Like you can spend the next 3 weeks doing the same thing protocol and have a wonderful performance on the deadlift in the first scenario, but maybe 2 months down the line, you do the same exact thing and have two different outcomes. So
Yeah.
that's what I hate about the deadlift thing. Like, it's just hard to determine whenever things are gonna be great or not. They even make me even worry. Let's see, I try to go for a powerlifting meet. How do people do to know exactly that thing's gonna be fine? Because for me, it's like a nightmare. Like, so far, I've not been lucky with having the proper anticipation for the for the deadlift.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll figure it out with time with somebody
Well,
coaching me and figuring out
there's
the layout.
there's a lot of points you mentioned there. So one of them is that training is always going to change. So what used to work for you in the past may not be the same now, even if you're running the
Hmm.
same program and strategies, right? So the exercise selection matters a lot.
Hmm.
Like I know in my case with the bench press, I got really good success with the dead bench. So you're doing a press off pins nonstop,
Hmm.
and even like longer pause reps, and that worked for a long time until it just stopped completely. No matter how many times I included that variation, it wasn't working anymore. And for me, I had to switch to the chain stuff to actually get the carryover I wanted. So same program, max effort, volume work, but
Right.
just the movement
It
affected.
was not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think in your case, maybe you need different variations of the deadlift, or it could be
Hmm.
that, like, I don't know how often you were doing it there, but a lot of powerlifters run the conjugate system.
Hmm.
They alternate. So they do week one squat, week two deadlift, and they go back and
Right.
forth like that. There's less overuse from the pulling because,
Hmm.
like you said, it's harder on recovery. And you know that feeling. You go in to rip it, and it's not
It's just
budging,
not
right?
there.
And then another
Right.
thing is that because you do a lot of weighted calisthenics, is it possible that your grip, your overall forearms, biceps, back, could that be limiting you for your pull? Because I saw a video the other day. I think his name is Misha.
Misha Schultz. Misha
Yes, yes,
Schultz. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I do follow him. Yeah.
yeah.
Uh
So he was talking about how the deadlift helps the front lever because you're pulling
huh.
this way, right? And that it actually
Right.
will give you carryover, but
Hmm.
you have to factor in the recovery effects. So it may not be worth it if you're doing too many pulls, right? And I'm sure the opposite would occur as well. If you're doing too much weighted calisthenics, that's going to affect your deadlift. But the squat,
Yeah.
it's different, right? And it's already going to be easier to recover from.
The blend of everything. Yeah, I mean, at least it's a good experiment because I have everything documented, and even my logs that I post, like it's pretty much 100% to 95% of my training. So I don't hide anything.
A lot of data to work with.
God forbid anything happened to me. That's what I've been doing in my life, and yeah, it's there. So I put it can be boring for people who don't really they don't vibe with it, but I think it's a lot of data for people who want to retro engineer and maybe use
Yeah.
that for their own use, because all the data is out there.
Well,
I'm like a perfect guinea pig for this one.
it's crazy because a lot of people aren't doing what you do, and like people have an example right in front of their face. Someone who's actually
Mm.
natural, who's been training for years. You never stop. You always film your stuff,
Yeah,
man.
so hard because you don't get much from it. Like, I monetize my videos, but if I had a Patreon, it'd probably be even more motivating. But for me, it's like a book that I'm writing, so I just put the videos out there. But still, like the editing, I got so good at it, but with the family life, the work life, it's very hard. And
Yeah.
I've been filming all my life, the past 11 years. All my things are filmed, and I have to condense them, manage the file size so that I can uh, I can make space and be efficient at it, be able to hoard all this data. And it's been good so far, but sometimes you're so tired. I'm like, man, I could spend that time, go to bed, but
Yeah.
I need to spend extra 2 hours putting the file together and then edit. And I've been
Yeah.
very consistent at
It's
it. At least every other day I post something,
it's
like 3 to 4 times a week I post my.
it's amazing, and it's a true testament to your discipline. Not only what you do in the gym because it's all documented,
Mhm.
but also your work ethic as a whole. And I think
That's
that's
true.
what's made you successful at pretty much everything that you dedicated yourself to.
So.
It's honestly inspiring. And I look at your content because even I learn, man, and it's so cool to see the actual progression because it's literally all there, and so few
Yes,
people
sir.
are documenting that. You see these fake workouts, and I know you know what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
Guys, they film themselves going intense in the gym. That's not how they work out. It's just something that they did for that day to look cool.
Yeah,
But you
very
don't see the
cool.
grind, you know?
Uh,
But
see, because the grind is boring.
yeah,
You don't see the zoom in, like where you see the muscle popping doing the sitting row or doing the lat pull down, and just to see the real delt popping and then switch off 1 second here and switch up to the other thing and sweating. And I'm like, it's easy to sweat, man. You can sweat doing pretty
yeah,
much anything, and you can scream doing pretty much anything, but be able to control your scream when things are really hard and keep your composure. It was really hard, but people don't understand. The kids don't understand this thing, man.
no, they'll
Like,
they'll get it. They'll get it with time. That's what it is.
every time
Eventually, we
they'll
all learn.
mature and they'll get it. Yeah, because
Yeah,
bunch of the followers are the people who are the one who follow me, the people who are definitely they do understand, and even the people who reach out to me for online coaching, they're like in their 40s, 50s. So it's
yeah,
interesting that the older generation like wants to learn calisthenics mixed with like barbell movement because they see the value in it. They can
yeah.
actually get it. Even though I'm not ripping 900 pounds off the floor, or if I'm not pulling 5 plates, because I'm kind of in between, right? I mean, the young guy who was the freakish calisthenics guy, he's like, okay, he's strong, but he is not as strong as my guy. And then you have the young guy in the powerlifting world who sees people ripping like squatting 800. Okay, he's strong, but come on, he's just barely there. So I'm kind of this alien that only the people who
What?
understand, who understand the essence of training, they're the one that can actually relate and see how hard it is to try to reach both worlds and kind of
It's
have a good blend of it. So,
it is
but
hard.
it's all good.
Yeah, it's all
I
good,
like
man.
it. I like it. I'm not doing that for anybody. So that's the most
No,
important thing.
you're walking your own
So,
path, and a lot of people do relate to it. You're good at it all. Like people don't give you enough credit for some of the feats of strength you perform. Like I bench 405, but I can't do some of the
which
stuff
is
you do.
which is ridiculous anyway. I was like when you said like you were getting it like and I was excited to see okay when is he gonna try because
Yeah,
I've been running the conjugate at the same time as well, right? So that's one of I think you were also one of the reasons why I got accustomed to the conjugate method way before conjugate was even conjugate where people been talking about it more mainstream. You had like Matt Winning on your
yeah,
podcast, and I didn't even know at that time what really the conjugate was all about. But I did watch the whole interview, and later on start following him as well. So learn good amount of stuff from him,
yeah,
and then obviously Jason Black has started doing later on. I think after you guys who were at better term, obviously. So sometimes I do take a look at his uh his concept and his modification that he just try to see if it could work with mine when I feel like I need some, but not so much. I just been following him for quite some time. But I mean, yeah, definitely you the one that been using the conjugate like literally pretty much very often,
yeah.
and then to even put the cherry on it, I mean the icing on the cake, you were able to use that and prove the world that yeah, it does work, and you had that 4 or 5. Like,
That's it.
I mean, can't sound like can't sound like a cheerleader or being and talking about having goosebump when the 4 or 5 went up, but that's literally how it felt when I saw it because I could feel all the work that goes through, and when you finally hit it, people don't understand,
Oh
man.
my God.
So I might sound like a little bitch saying that I had goosebumps, but I just felt the same thing going like me reaching my final goal when it works out, the way you want it. So
That's
yeah, man,
it. Well,
it's incredible.
I I,
It's
I
incredible.
appreciate that, man. And
Yeah.
I was gonna say something, but I lost my train of thought. That was cool. But
Yes.
but yeah, like for you, bro, I think if you were to peak for the bench press, you put up some hardcore numbers because the mass is there and the general strength is there, so it wouldn't take long at all. Like obviously over
Right.
3 plates, that would be a wrap.
Eventually, for sure, I would definitely will be more more leaning into what you call 'em, lift. I mean, taking going on the I mean picking in meets and powerlifting soon enough than doing the bodybuilding competition. I'll probably do the powerlifting first before entertain
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
bodybuilding. And if I do the bodybuilding, it's probably for marketing purpose because obviously I have some good genes for it. I just never felt a call for it because I felt it was too subjective and somebody can just pick somebody else over me out of just pure preference. It's
Yeah,
not it's not
that's
it's
what it
not too
is. Like
objective. It's not too objective. So I never felt like I will go and get what I deserve. So
I
that's
agree,
why
and then there's a lot
yeah.
of fake naturals out there, and
Oh yeah,
that
yeah,
was
that's so.
appealing, especially in that world. I find like with
Mhm.
calisthenics, it hasn't quite hit that point yet where the majority are enhanced. I
Yes,
feel
baby.
that most people who are dipping 5 plates are natural,
Mhm.
in my opinion.
Yeah, in your opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like even like what you call them, the French Quarter. I mean, I think they are natural.
The French?
I don't have that feel. Yeah, like Blackie and the rest,
Oh
and
yes, all those guys.
You have Ludo, you
That's
have
it.
all that, you have like Olivier, the Vegeta, M Coach Vegeta and stuff like that, Vegeta. I mean, I feel like they're natural because there's nothing that scream freak, freak. I mean, freakish strength, of course, but nothing that scream out of this world. Because if he's still at 105 pull up, Blackie, I feel like he trained ridiculously, religiously strict. He makes sure he get 8 hours of sleep. That he's the one that make me feel like I'm a jackass and I don't want to make the sacrifice need to sleep enough because he goes to bed early and he made a point. Yeah, I mean you have to skip on your hobbies like
Yeah.
Netflix. People complain about not watching. I mean, not being able to sleep, but they watch all the Netflix shows, right? All you got to do is sacrifice that and go to bed early.
Yep.
But it's hard because you have so much distraction. It's hard to be disciplined about going to bed early. But if you want to be the world champion, you need to maximize everything and
Yeah.
So
It's
I mean, he did all the sacrifice he needed. So when he been training, the dedication is out of this world as well. I'm dedicated, so I
yeah.
mean, I would say that I'm more dedicated than him because it's me, right? The ego will let you say that. But I'm sure we all train as religious because we believe in our process and we train as hard as we can. The
Yeah.
rest is just what it is. Yeah, but I feel like you can even do six. You can do like 6 play. That's 270, right? No, no,
Six plates on the dip.
two. Yeah, on the dip.
That's
Yeah,
what Baki
six.
does.
No, no, he does 8.
Oh fuck.
Yeah, no, he does 8. That's what I'm
uh,
saying. You probably didn't picture right. He got 160 kilogram. That's
oh
like eight
man.
legs or 20. Yeah, yeah, he. Yeah, he's an alien. That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Well,
Like,
but you know what? I think we can definitely
but
do six, 100%.
yeah,
I
we can
agree.
do six.
Maybe seven too.
That's for sure. Even 7, but
Maybe,
the
yeah.
8. Even thinking of 8, I feel like my like
Brain's
you
gonna explode.
when you get sunk into a black hole. Nobody ever got sunk into a black hole where light cannot escape. I feel that's how the weight is gonna rip me apart when I get on 160 kilogram trying to get my way out of the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can not comprehend that load. I think 7 is reasonable for me to shoot for. I know 6 will be pretty soon. Like within the next year,
Oh
I will
yeah.
definitely get 6. That's guaranteed. Now
Yeah.
7, and again, he been training at it that religiously for the past 5 years. So
Yeah.
it's because that consistency, that super consistency, and not getting injured.
What people don't realize is the time that it takes, right? And how you have
Mm-hmm.
to stay on this path of weighted calisthenics for years. Like you
Because yeah.
mentioned, years ago you had the same dip, right? But then you moved on to other stuff. You did your skill training,
Mm-hmm.
you're doing the high volume. Like it wasn't always dedicated to that craft, right?
To that
But
craft, yeah.
let's say you and me, okay? I think we both. Well, I did a 225 dip in 2017, right?
Mm-hmm.
2021 now. If I would have never stopped, I think I would have
Mm-hmm.
had 7 plates by now. But instead, I
Same
chose
play
to
right now.
focus
Yeah.
on the bench and other
On
stuff.
other
It's
stuff.
all about
Yeah.
when you put in that context, these numbers that we see that are so crazy, maybe they're not.
Yeah, that's true. That's if that's all you put your all if that's all you put your soul in, you're definitely gonna be moving without, Uh and also like I feel like what you call that? The I had some in mind. This guy he just lost my train of thought. Yes, this baby, you wake up now. Oh my goodness.
Well,
Yeah, get your bottle. Okay? Oui, oui, vas-y, prends ta bouteille. So, like, yeah, like when I started the conjugate, the max I was able to get is 205. So it didn't really start. So this is some also that I tend to ignore. Like when I tried the first time to get back to it, 205 was the maximum that I could do. So in my mind, I'm thinking I was always there 235 deeper, even though I left it for a long time. I
dang.
think that's what I don't want to admit. So
Yeah.
from that perspective, if you see that, then I'm doing like the 225 pretty easily now. So I've gained, I guess, 20 pounds, the whole time on it, which is not too bad. But it's just that I'm not too happy or too proud of it,
Well, this
because it
is
was not, it took me 5 months to actually get back to the 225.
now it's your new starting point, and it's not gonna go back down. That's the difference.
Hmm.
Like when I
Yeah.
did my cut last year, I had a
Hmm.
385 bench, and then I
Hmm.
don't even know what the hell it was at when I got lean, but I'm sure it was in the lower 300s, right? So I had to first rebuild it to the peak
Right.
performance, and that took
Hmm.
most of the time. And then in the later months, that's when I got that
I
20 pound dip.
got you there. And how
So
long it took you to build back up?
the
Did
thing
it
is,
take
I
long?
never tested I was always doing variations. So
Hmm.
like one of the things that makes our training different with the conjugate style is that I see you do you test your dip every 6 weeks, right? That's what you said before.
Hmm. Yeah.
I didn't test mine at all. I would always do a
Uh,
variation all the way
variation.
till the
Oh,
end.
okay.
So I didn't know.
Uh,
I don't know how many months it took to get back to that peak,
to get back to that.
but
Okay. You only had different variation.
because it was
Okay.
always changing. But I was able to
All
base
right.
it off the accessories. So when I did
Hmm.
the 355 Swiss bar bench,
Hmm.
that's how I knew my raw was at least 385, 390, because there's always a 30-pound difference. So sometimes you have lifts that correlate 1 to 1. It's hard to
Hmm.
find that, but they do exist, And I don't know what that is for calisthenics, because, like in your case, the ring dip, I saw you not
Hmm.
too long ago. I think you did 125 pounds. Then you did a
Hmm.
135 or 145.
Yeah.
Now you're already
Okay.
up at 160. So it's hard
That
to distinguish.
it's hard to correlate that one. But all I
Yeah.
could tell is that it was about 50% of my maximum at any given time. It hovered around that of my max dip when I was doing it. So that's something I can use in the future to see if I get ridiculously strong on the weighted dip itself. Maybe have an idea of how much my ring dip will be. But it's not really a concern of mine to have my ring dip up because I know it's skill specific,
Yeah.
and a lot of time people who are not proficient on the ring, who don't have that stability that I have from training rings for years, might be heavy dipper and not be able to to do even one like 2 plates, like
Yeah.
a 90 pound, like a powerlifter who can dip like one of these crazy heavyweight Russian powerlifters who can bench like 700 pounds. If you put them on the dip
Oh my
on the
god.
ring and you want them to do even one plate, they won't be able to do that because it requires you to be stable enough.
Yeah.
That's why I would like to see somebody who in street lifting who got decent proficiency on the ring and who got heavy weighted dip, try it randomly and see how much they're able to do.
Yeah.
But again, it can be dangerous because all it takes is one tweak and you fucked.
I'd love to see that. Maybe if they spent a bit of time doing just body weight, mastering the form, and then they do a 1 rep max weighted, I don't think they would get
Hmm.
injured because if they're used to maxing out in the with the bar, like that's already
Oh
heavy
yeah,
enough. But just to get the
right,
form dialed in a bit. But I'd be curious
right.
about that, and I'm curious how like the ring dips, specifically the RTO, how that
Hmm.
affects the bar dip because it's harder on the lockout, and you're moving more
Hmm.
in, so you're working more pecs, and I would say you're getting better lockout strength as a result. But how would
Hmm.
that compare to doing a dip with chains?
Chance,
On an actual
yeah.
bar. So it's tough to say
Hmm.
what's most bang for your buck. And actually, I'm curious about that. Do you ever max out? Because I've seen you do the dynamic effort with the accommodating resistance, but do you ever do 1 rep
Hmm.
max dips with chains or 1 rep max pull-ups with chains?
No, I never tried. I never tried any max effort with resistance band
Really?
or with chain. Yeah, like I'll try to milk it as long as I can. So I never try to jump straight to the accommodated resistance. It took 6 months for me to start using the the resistance band for my dynamic effort because I wanted to max
First you
the
did yeah.
movements without it first before I can add a different stimulus so I don't run out of uh, variations or whatever form of dynamic effort I want to use. But my goal was now after a year, I could start like adding the the accumulated resistance on the max effort lift, like on the squats and on the max effort deadlift for singles. But so far, I only use them on the dynamic effort because
Interesting.
for me it was just about I mean overcoming the deceleration. That was the concept. And being explosive on the dynamic effort is being crucial. The best thing I could use them for would be on that
That's true.
if I wanted to get explosive. That's why, and I didn't want to put too much variable to be confused about what works and what don't work. So I took it one step at a time.
Yeah.
So now if I start using them on max effort and it start working even better, I will know at least that okay, this is the
Uh,
new thing
so
that I changed.
you can isolate the
I,
variables better
I
because you have
cannot say
experience
the
on both ends.
the
I
variable,
get it.
but exactly.
Yeah,
So that's usually that's how that was my mindset in approaching those. I didn't want to throw everything I could, even though I was tempted at time where I felt like it was slow. I was really tempted, but I decided that if I wanted to be objective and be able to optimize the program, I needed to be very minimal in how much variable I toast at a time, so I
okay.
can take them out when I need to. But yeah, I never tried and wouldn't the chain need to be very heavy?
Well, you need more than one
Uh,
chain.
uh,
Like what you got to do is get this thing called a daisy chain. It's like $10
mhm.
off Amazon, and you just attach a bunch of them to the bottom of it, and then you clip that to your dip belt, and it'll be perfectly fine. When you go down, the chains are gonna be
Mhm.
unloaded, and then the lockout they'll be up there. And the same for the pull-ups. You
And
just need
how much weight will be the chain?
you're gonna need a lot of chain weight. You'll need at least 4 chains.
For a chain?
It's gonna there's gonna be a bunch of them on the floor. But I'm sure
Uh-huh.
you have a powerlifting gym where they have all that, right?
They only have two on one chain, I think, for the
And
for
are
the
they
accommodating resistance
and are
in
they
the
heavy
end.
chains, like 60 to 90 pounds, 30 pounds?
No, not heavy. I think probably maybe 50 pound. I can picture only 50 pound, even less. I don't think they're heavy. Or
Okay.
45 pound. I think it's a conventional one
Oh, so they're
short,
yeah. So
short pain, short. I don't know how much those
they're
weigh.
probably 30 pounds. So you would need
Yeah,
like four
30.
of those
Okay.
to make it
Okay.
120.
For the deep.
Yeah, pretty much. But that would be for rep work, because then your max effort obviously
Okay.
is going to be higher. So you would need a lot
All
of
right.
chains to get it done, or you mix a chain with a little bit of straight weight. You got to have the right setup.
Because I'll have to be really high on the deep. There's
Yeah,
no
it
such
also
thing as
depends where you're doing it too. Like if it's in a power rack or
uh-huh.
in a dip station, your
Okay.
height too. So I guess it
Hmm.
depends, right? But I would try it out. Actually, an
And how,
easy way around it would be you wear a vest and
mhm.
the chain weight. This way you get a bit of both mixed in.
So you feel like the using accommodating resistance is more effective on the max effort, or it is more effective on the dynamic effort.
Well, if you're gonna do dynamic effort, it's better to use accommodating resistance than not. So for that,
Hmm.
it's definitely more effective. But in my experience, it works really, really well on max
On
effort
the
days.
max effort.
That's how I've
So
got my best PRs, hands down.
yeah, right. So I think it like you can play around with the top. I mean the top loads, like on the squat, for example. You can have the feel of the load itself that you're aiming for, and as you're going down, then that will unload it
Yeah,
for you to be able to to get the repetition in.
yeah,
Yeah, I could understand that in that manner.
and with
Uh-huh.
calisthenics, a lot of the movements they don't have the same strength curve as raw
Hmm.
powerlifting, right? So the chin up, one rep max, it gets very hard at the lockout. So when you use the accommodating resistance, I know you're able to pop easily off the bottom, right? But then you get stuck here. But if you had the chains, you'd be able to hold 180 right here, and you'd get like a nice squeeze in with the same movement pattern. So I think that would actually help
So
you.
if you have the chain and you say you can hold it,
If you,
wouldn't it be hanging?
what
Wouldn't
I
the
would
chain
do,
be?
here's what I would do: a pair of 60-pound chains. So that would be 120 chain, and then you wear a vest that's 60 pounds. You're holding 180 at the top,
Hmm.
and you got a little bit of resistance on you. It's not too easy at the bottom because there's still a bit of the chain hanging off. But
Hmm.
the moment you get to that sticking point, it's going to get crazy hard. But now you can do an isometric hold and you're still getting the movement in. So I think it would help you get that little pop in.
Okay.
So I would try that out. Vest
Yeah.
with the chain.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I always thought I would benefit more from the dynamic effort there. And what would be the difference between the bends and the chain? What would be the typical advantage of the chain over the bends?
Well, the chains feel more like straight weight, and they're
Mm.
not pulling you down hard. So
Okay.
they affect your recovery a bit differently. Also, the bands, it's kind of hard to figure out what exact numbers
What
you're using
exactly?
for the max effort.
I have a fish scale that
Oh,
I
you
work
have that?
around with, and people are like, "Man, I never saw that." I'm like, "Yeah, just people don't
Nice.
understand, man. You
Yeah.
got if I don't know what I'm pulling, then yeah, I mean that's like going blindly. I need to know
Yeah.
because every single bit of pound, I will know at least I'm making progress. But even then, with the fish scale, when I change the environment, I have to struggle to find the exact tension, but I have an idea
Ah.
what range
So you
it
test
goes
that every
around.
time. You're in a
But at
different
least
spot.
I can tell how much load I have
Yeah.
using the fish scale. Yeah.
That's it. And also the bands, for some tensions, it just doesn't work as well. The sticking points get
Hmm.
hard very, very quickly, whereas the chains is a
Hmm.
bit more smooth. So
Uh,
like I know on the bench press, if I do more than a light band, the green one, it just feels wrong, and I don't find the carryovers the best. So usually when using the band tension, first of all, it's not going to be only band. You mix it with the straight weight also. So that's why I recommend
right.
wearing the vest at the same time. And when you do use the bands, it's not going to be
What if I use the
super heavy.
belt with the weight? It's not gonna be same because
Oh yeah, for sure.
you want the relay stay to be long, right? That's why you want me to use the vest so
Exactly. I don't want the
I can move longer
exactly.
distance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that would be the best way to do it. But if you can figure out a way where it's around your belt, regular
Mm.
weight plus the band, then you're not gonna have a problem. And maybe chains
Yeah.
would work good for that actually,
Right.
but without going on the floor completely closed.
Hmm.
Like you keep them hanging, even though that's the wrong way. I think if you start doing that, it's gonna be some crazy gains because you milked a
Yeah.
lot of the basic stuff for all this time.
This
This is the
stuff,
next
yeah,
level, if
really.
you ask me.
Right. And the one thing that I was gonna ask, the way you do the max effort, right? You know, you go to 100%, and then you go to the max effort, and then you get 90% for two uh, three repetitions of 90%, right? So that's where you back down whenever you
I
do the max effort.
I used to do that, like three
Mhm.
sets of one at 90%, or you do a triple or a five. But now I don't do that anymore. I do three attempts, max effort,
Uh-huh.
and then I back it
Yeah.
down usually to 70%, and I'll do rep work with that. I go straight into volume
Okay.
after the max effort.
Oh, so you use the same movement and you go straight to volume with that same movement.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. So you don't use a different exercise to do the volume
You
then.
you
So
could.
it's still fine then to do volume right away
I found it was
after
fine.
the same. Okay.
I thought for a long time that it was wrong, I would always,
Mm.
if I was doing max effort, then the back off work would be low reps. But after
Mm.
experimenting with the higher reps, I didn't notice any interference. I still got just as strong, but by getting
Mm.
less beat down as well. What's cool is that you can set the percentages perfectly because you just maxed out on that lift. So now you know that you're not guessing.
Yeah,
So
you
it's gonna
use
be
a
perfect every
percentage.
time.
So you don't back down to 90% and do the set of 3 or 9. Because I only do one set of 3
Yeah.
whenever I back down from the max effort. Because that's what I learned from reading on the conjugate
Yeah.
style. I'm a site. But looking around for you, for example, I've seen you try to do 3 set of 3 with 90% or so. I mean, can you do 3 set of 3 right after the max
I
effort?
used to do that, yeah, and it worked great.
Yeah, so it's not it's now it won't be overreaching
No,
trying to do that much volume right after the max effort. It will
no.
still be fine then.
You'll be
Okay.
fine as long as you sleep and eat correctly, and most importantly,
Yeah.
rotate the movements. You'll be okay.
So you did 3 set of 3 with what percentage?
Well, sometimes you don't even need a percentage. You can just base it
You
off.
just go whatever feels.
Kind of know. You know your body at a
Yeah.
certain point.
Whatever.
So
Yeah, and I noticed also that on the weight calisthenics, the loads,
it's
like a
really
90% of the max will pretty much be as close as to the max whenever you back down. You won't be able to do 2 or 3. There is no way, like at least on the way they pull up. Uh, yeah, on the way deep is as at most 2 repetition. I never got to do 3. But however, on deadlift and squat, I was always able to do like the 3 when everything is great. And most of the time, I managed to do 3 repetitions,
yeah.
90% of my max. But sometimes when it's kind of I'm a little overreach. Maybe when I push too hard on the to reach max, or maybe when I had many new max, then I may do 2 repetitions on the 90%. But from experience on the lower body, I was able to
Yeah.
get the numbers at 90%. However, on the upper body, even 1 repetition, it feels like the max, even when you back down by 10% or so.
I think you're right about that because even if you do 70% after doing weighted dips, it feels heavier than that. I found, and I don't know, maybe it's because all of us are calculating it wrong, right? There's two ways you can
Mm.
approach it. You can say the
Adding your weight,
percentage,
subtract,
yeah,
subtracting
you
your
can
weight
base
and
it
all
off
that.
that, right?
I've done those. I've
So
done
it's
those as
like,
well, and it can be different when you,
right?
yeah, like yeah,
So it's
like
hard to,
adding your body weight,
yeah, yeah,
using the percentage of it, and then to restore, yeah, you subtract your body weight, and yeah, and do those so you can know the increment go.
yeah,
And that's one reason why I wanted to work with Baki so I can see. Obviously, his programming is working, so I want to see in a certain amount of time how much he's able to put on, right? Weights wise, but I mean tonnage wise, compared to me having used the conjugate.
hmm
Because like on the squat, for example, I think it's 445 as of now on the low bar and 440 on the high bar. So I'm within 40 to 45 pounds that I put on within the last 10 months. So, and I'm sure before I'm done, I will reach 455 pretty much sometime next week. I'm definitely sure that I will reach that. So I'll put at least 50 pounds within a year. So I don't really know what's the reasonable, what's overachieved, and what's actually lagging.
mm,
Granted that every individual is different. Some people have a hard time really putting on thing and just the way it's gonna be for them. So this will give me an idea of, you know, how to approach thing and no, don't hurt baby. So that's yeah, Sava Sava. Don't pull his leg. No. Trying to pull it, they're gonna break his leg.
I got you.
Yeah, uh so from your experience, like how long how long you peaked for your 405?
About three to
How
four
long it
weeks.
took? I mean, how much you built from when you got back to benching?
Well, it started in at the end of December, you can say, and I got it
Hmm.
May 25th.
Okay,
So
so about 5 6 months. I mean, five six
I think it
months. Yeah,
was
yeah.
5.5 months, something like that.
5.5 months. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
And when you start, you have your test bench. How much was it? Or you haven't test? You just
I just
straight
went
up to
straight into
variation.
conjugate full on, man.
It's
So I don't even
straight
know.
up to variation.
Yeah, because also
Oh, okay.
I found that being psychologically defeated is not good.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I knew that I was gonna be weak because I lost a lot of weight. So I just said, screw it, let's
Yeah.
go into
So yeah, sure.
variations.
Let's go to variation. Got
And
you.
I'll do weird ones too, like the Swiss bar
Mm-hmm.
dead bench with
Yeah, I saw the Swiss
chains.
bar one. Yeah,
So
that ugly bar.
yeah, man, like
Saw the ugly bar.
yeah. The
Yeah.
thing is, it's all about straining.
Yeah,
That's what
but I
that's
thought
what it is.
because I tried to apply that right, but there's not much variation I can use for weighted calisthenics. That's
That's
why I try to just do pauses version, rings
yeah,
version, and that's pretty much the only thing I had. So I had like the three different variation of pulling and three different variation of dip. So I had like regular, the pause, and then the ring version that
yeah.
I alternate in between pull and push. So I mean, on the
That
ring version
extends it a
of the
bit.
pull,
Yeah,
I use the archers. That's what I did for the first half year, and then I started doing straight up weighted rings in the second
exactly.
half year
Well,
because I wanted to peak for one arm pull up. So I did the thing; it wasn't really giving me what I wanted, so I just switched up to let me just go straight to a ring weighted pull up. And when I want to work on my one arm pull up, I would just focus solely on that. But it was good because I still build some I mean some relative strength in the process. So I only had three variations on the upper body.
okay.
The lower body gave me more option of variation, that I still
Yeah.
that I was able to milk. But I tried to the weighted push up, for example, to use as a variation of pushing. But to me, the setup requires was just too much. That's why I decided not to use it. The weighted push-up, I had to use like a high bench, like a elevated bench for my legs, something high enough so that the weight can be hanging, and I had to use two platforms. So I need like a tripod setup.
Yeah.
And being mobile, I cannot duplicate that environment in different gym if I'll end up blank. So I was like, I'm just not gonna go for it. And I didn't even know there's two school of thought about whether that is really helpful or not. A lot of people use it and feel like it's the end of the all. It helps a lot. Other people have used it and be like, it's not really that great of the deal. So it will be ever been that, and then do the weighted version of it, like either the weight on my back or which is not stable. You need somebody always to do that. Or you put the weight on your belt, which needs you to be perched up. And either way is not convenient. It requires too much logistic. That's why I decided not to use the weighted push up as a variation on my push. I just stick to the deep variation, the simple ones, the normal, the pause deep,
That makes
and
sense.
the ring deep.
I
Yeah.
I think what made you get away with it while not having a lot of variations is that you would alternate. So one
Hmm.
week you would do the dip part, then the other
Hmm.
week would be the
Yeah.
pull up. So you go back and forth. That
Yeah.
allows you to keep using it. Then the
Right.
accessories, that's where you're pushing the volume anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Right. Yeah, I use the skill work like front lever raises and a bunch of variation that I always wanted to work. Like on my lever, for example, for some reason it's so hard. Like I have to pick for to have a few second lever, and it's not like the perfect packed one that I even want. So I figured I might as well build volume throughout the phases. So I just kept on playing around with volume. So I built to three set of 10 raises and then four set of 10, and then I reached to five set of 10. My goal was to do five set of 15, which is a whole lot of volume to be doing in one
Hmm.
session. But when I reached that, I mean, I felt like the last repetition was still escaping. So I felt that I reached overused zone. So that's when I started incorporating the raises with pause to kind of have a mini peak for the skill
Hmm.
itself, which I'm gonna do right now because it's been like 8 months that I've really building the volume, and I felt like okay, I think it's now enough for me to see if I can peak for strength. I gained enough hypertrophy already to see if it can have a carryover if I peak for like the hold themselves. I'm gonna go with some negatives and then negatives holds, and then within 6 weeks and see where my new front lever form would be at. So I
Hmm.
use those, and I use the iron cross raises
Yeah,
for pushing movement. So it can get really creative when it comes to accessory
it's
work.
easier with it.
That can is yeah, and you get to do the movement that you will be skeptical of using
Yeah,
because you're afraid of not picking properly. But this time it was all about hypertrophy, so I didn't have a problem
that's
using a lot of variation and build that. When on max effort, the three set of three that I was gonna ask you. That was one of my concerns. I was wondering if I should use them because I felt that maybe I was not breaking through because I didn't have enough volume, on the weighted pull. Even though I do like a good 12 sets, I mean, 8 set of, I start with 12 set of two and 12 set of three, and then it was too much volume, and I reduced it to 8 sets of three to make it 24 rep count,
Yeah.
and which was much more manageable. Doesn't induce too much soreness that I cannot recover from. And I used to use the 60%,
And then you have to
50 to
switch to
60% on the pool,
yeah.
and then it was a lot of work, and I was always tired. And then after like the first cycle, I decided to use the mat winning approach and use 30%. So when I use 30%, I mean, when I heard about it, it made more sense, especially that it's a bodyweight movement. It's more taxing in terms of proprioception and stuff. So using lesser weights would make more sense. And mat winning, even using that for bench press and stuff like that. So I'm like, yeah, might as
It's a
well use
perfect
that.
solution. Yeah.
And it was good. It worked pretty well. That's when I even adjust the set count to 8. So instead of decreasing from 10, I mean from 12, 10 and 8 like the convention, I do like 8. I start with 8 and I go to 7 and I end up with 6 sets. So by the third, because the way I start up my cycles is it's a 6 week, but every 3 weeks I change the dynamic effort.
And
So I use the dynamic effort movement for 3 weeks. So in one cycle of 6 weeks, I change the dynamic effort twice, even though the normal cycle is a 6 week cycle. So that's how I started. And then after 7 months, I started using the third week of each of the 6 weeks as a mini like a recovery week. I'll use 80% of the loads. Like first week one is normal, week two normal, and then on the third week I had like a recovery week where I use 80% of the load, which helped me getting ready for the fourth week where I go mildly hard. On the fifth week I go hard, and then I have another recovery week on week 6. So this is what I've been doing for the past 2 months, and it's been working awesome. So I wish I had figured that out for my body when I first started. It would have helped me a lot on recovery management.
yeah.
Because back then I would just go all out from 1 to 5, and
Yeah.
then I get like a kind of a deload week on week 6, which is really not a deload.
Yeah.
So I didn't take a deload week until like week 10. So that was like almost like 5 months through the whole thing before I had one deload week. And after that, I never took the deload because I didn't want to take a deload because I felt like I'm gonna detrain. So my mind was like, back in the days, I may have been indulging on those deload. This time I'm gonna keep it, just manage volume, even though it feels exhausting, and hoping that when it's time to perform, I'll be just fine. So yeah, that's how I've been doing. But the recovery week aspect has been working like wonderfully. So
Like when you say
I'm
recovery.
probably if I continue that, it will be like 1 2 recovery, 1 2 recovering. And Pavel, I was listening to Pavel Sasulin, the kettlebell guy. Yeah, so in aspect of strength training, given that the body cannot handle more than 2 hard weeks, of training before starting to lose performance, it made more sense to me that okay, I'm gonna push those 2 weeks, have like a recovery week, and then go for another 2 weeks, and then
Interesting.
that 6 weeks could be like a deload week where everything is 50%, or could be another recovery week.
To stay
Yeah.
fresh at all times, and I guess that's
Right.
extra good because we're maxing out a lot. So
Maxing out a lot, yeah,
so what
exactly.
I'm curious is like what specifically does this recovery week entail? Like what do you mean by that?
The max efforts are usually the same, and the way I set up the moment I start doing the recovery week thing, uh, like I would do, for example, on the max efforts of leg, okay, I would do the max efforts of my main lift, for example, and then on the week 2, I did that's the new I would go like a negative squat, like the back squat. So this is a new form of variation that I've incorporated, in the past like 6 to 8 weeks. And then I'll go for a pause squat on the recovery week without belts. So I will get rid of myself or all the accessory that could make me push harder than I should, and leaving my spine naked. Then I will just truly push what my body can push like safely. So usually on those recovery week, my max efforts will be deprived of accessory, anything that can make me push too hard. And then on the accessories, that's where I use 80% of the previous load on the movement, and then either I keep the rep count the same or I cut the rep count in half, depending on how I feel.
Okay, that seems
So
like
on accessory work, I reduce the load, but the max effort I use a variation that don't make me push harder than I should.
gotcha.
So that way I don't really feel bad about the load. Whatever I can that day without the belt, it will be fine. Sometimes it's amazing, sometimes it's just normal. Like this week, my recovery week, I did a pause low bar. I was playing around with the low bar because I still can figure how low I should go. And 225 was super heavy, but I didn't feel too bad about it because it's a recovery week anyway, and it's week 6, so I'm fine with that. Whatever is there, so I just play around with much lighter weight, trying to see the ball positioning, and I skipped my hip thrust, which is one of the accessory that I was using. I even skipped it altogether because 225 feeling heavy, it makes no sense. That means my nervous system is really tired. So I just skipped that part and I did some reverse hyperextension for volume body weights, and for like set of 30, 2 sets. Usually I do 3 sets with either body weight or just a little bit of weight. But this time I just cut it at 2 and I went home. So that's how I usually get my recovery week. I don't push it. I don't take it too seriously, and it's been working well. I love it.
Well, it sounds
And
smart.
I was trying to see now if I can use the same approach for my upper body now in this new cycle of uh, of max effort. Like this time, I wanted to focus the first 3 weeks to max efforts on the pulling, and then the last 3 weeks to the max efforts on the pushing, and then use some accessory. Anytime I do max effort of pulling, use like a 70% of a max effort of pushing, and do like a 3 set of 10 on that one for like 2 weeks, and then on the third week, I kind of get a recovery week before I pick on max efforts of pushing on the next 3 weeks. So my concern was if you were to do like a weighted, like a negative pull up and max efforts of normal weighted pull up, which one would you put on week 1 or week 2? Would you do the negatives weighted pull up first on week 1 before you do the normal weighted pull up on week 2 before the recovery week? Or would you do the normal pull, then overreach with the negative on week 2
Yeah,
before you get to recovery? That's
that's
what I've been doing for
that's what I
my.
would do too. Yeah,
I do right,
yeah,
yeah.
because what if the negatives affect you the week before you do your regular
The
sort of
week
thing?
before,
So you might as well overreach a
right,
little bit and then get your recovery week since you're
and get
already
your
doing
recovery,
the recovery. Now, if you weren't doing the recovery weeks, I guess that changes things a bit. But because it's there,
right.
it's actually a pretty smart idea.
I wanted to incorporate like some some max efforts. I mean, some high loads on the weighted pull up. I wanted to do the negatives this time as the main max effort day. Usually, I used to do the negatives after my normal
Now you
max
got an
efforts. I do
accessory
it.
to
I do it.
multiply through
I
or
do a
something.
top hold. I do a top hold, and then I do some negative that follow. So it's usually like after my normal max effort. But
Mm.
this time, I want to dedicate the week to just go straight for like 5 sets of negatives or 3 sets of heavy negatives. Maybe in the pyramid scheme, starting with the heaviest and then go down 5% to the subsequent set for 5 sets. 5 sets of heavy negatives. That will be the work for that week. That's what I was planning to do on my next cycle. So that's why I wanted to have this conversation to know where to put the negative, whether I should start with that all out. Because after the max effort, the negative it might take away from the effort that I will put on the negatives for the following week. That's if I consider the negatives being something that will give me more,
Yeah, I guess also.
that I will benefit more from. Because if I count on the negatives to help me more, then it will be wise for me to start the cycle with that. But if I'm just using that as another reach or the max effort, then it makes sense to put it on week two.
Exactly.
So I was trying to figure which would be my best call on that, to
I think
how to set.
what's also going to be interesting is to see the carryover on like
Mhm.
really heavy negatives focus as a max
Mhm.
effort replacement
Right,
compared to doing them as back off work, and also
right.
like how effective is it versus another variation that's maybe more specific, like a max effort ring pull up versus super heavy negatives. What would be better?
So usually that's how I go. I go with a convention, and then I use a little bit of anecdotal experience of other people and mine as well, and trying to come up with something different. Basically,
So
it will be interesting. Yeah, should be fun. Should be
yeah,
fun.
yeah,
Yeah. And what are your plans? What are your plans at the moment?
it's
Have you
fun.
tried the iron cross and stuff like that?
I can't do that yet, but I'm doing basic
That's
stuff, man, and also weighted ring exercises because
uh-huh.
my absolute strength is higher from the bar work. I feel like I can skip a few steps compared to other
Okay.
people.
Yeah. You used to love deadlifting. You don't want to deadlift anymore?
No, no, I got a deadlift bar coming in today
Uh,
actually, so that should be fun.
oh,
So I might
okay.
be using that, and the road to 600 will continue. And squat, I think
Awesome.
500 would be a good goal because I
Uh-huh.
was lazy for many years, and I think it's time to change. But the thing is, my
Check.
legs are 25 inches, so they're not small, and I can still
No,
pull
yeah.
in the 500s. It's just that by powerlifting
Mm-hmm.
standards, it's not what it should be. So,
All right.
but
And you do sumo or you do conventional?
I do both, but I think I'm gonna do conventional this time around.
Because my
So,
sumo, I like the conventional. It looks like my sumo is stronger. Because probably because my quads are strong as well. So I'm able to be more stable. And it's an ugly sumo, but I think it's like I got 545 like 4 months ago. That was what I built up to 545 on the sumo. So
oh,
I mean, I guess if I was to get 600, it would probably be in the sumo rather than
but you know what?
conventional.
It's still it's still
It'll
good.
still be a bull.
People can
It'll
talk
still be a
trash
bull.
all they want. It's legal in
Yeah,
powerlifting.
that shit is hard too. Yeah, it's still hard.
It's
Yeah,
still
they
hard,
can try
man.
scratch all they want.
Yeah, yeah. Plus, it's
Yeah.
like you talk about balance. You're not a powerlifter, so pulling 600 in
Mhm.
any style is still impressive, especially
It's
when you can
still
do all this other
impressive.
stuff. You know,
Right.
and people don't know this. Actually, I want to talk about this real quick. You've been doing knees over toes movements for years, right?
Right.
I remember you had those
Right.
headlocks, and you were doing that
Mhm.
stuff. Um,
Mhm.
but now people are starting to figure out that yeah, that's actually fine. So
Right.
I find it interesting how you were ahead of the game
Thanks.
long
And
time.
I made a video about it just to
Yeah,
look for clouds, not to knock the guy up. But he seems to
he's a
be like
cool
a
guy. Yeah,
genuine nice guy. So somebody that I would get along with. But I just wanted my time too, man. Shit, the man's been like grinding for a long time. I need some shine. So
yeah, yeah.
shit, nothing wrong making a video. I mean, just to get views. But yeah, I've been doing a lot of those stuff for a while, and it looks like he used that type of training to recover from injured knee. So I gotta give him even more props because that proves that those things work, those movements work because he had a messed up knee, which I never did, and he came out of messed up knee and was able to overcome everything just using something that's supposed to hurt your knee.
Yeah.
So that tells it all. Mine, I think my knee was weak to a certain extent. I was feeling cracking and popping here and there. That's the only thing close to discomfort I can allude to before I start training, my legs and single leg squat and the knee over toe movement, CC squats and stuff like that. And since then, obviously, it has gotten a lot stronger, and I never really feel. any type of any lack of confidence in any position on the floor because I know that's how sturdy my tendons are, and
Yeah.
when I do anything. So it definitely works. I even use the CC squats to the extreme in my cycles, and I'm that may be one of not mistake, but maybe one of the thing that may have uh, take away the progress because I tend to use certain movement out of preference rather than
Ah,
addressing my
exactly.
weaknesses
That's a
because
tough.
I wanted to try them and see how much I can push them even when I knew that it won't carry over too much. If anything, it could
Ah,
take away. If your knee gets sore, your VMO gets sore, obviously your squat's gonna suffer because you need your quads too. So that may have affected, but I don't think it's too much. I was able to know how much I could push it, how much deficit I could use them. And after a
exactly.
while, when I felt that my body had enough of them, and if I keep pushing, it's gonna get chronic, I just stop using them and I switch them with a different movement. Start using the belt squats and stuff like that. That could carry over much more to the squat.
That's
So
true.
I did have a good amount of combination, see how certain exercises work in the long term, and yeah, so
Yeah.
it's a wealth of experiment for me to help my clients with, and I'm very happy about it
Well,
that I went through that.
you have the experience on both ends, and it's cool that you're able to distinguish the carryover from a sissy squat versus a belt squat. So
Best
what I would
squad,
think
yeah.
in your case is that you probably have unlocked so much quad strength that it probably won't be a limiting factor for you for a very
hmm
long time. I would
Yeah,
say, if
a
anything,
long time.
it'll
Yeah.
be your spinal rectors and maybe your glutes and
hmm
hamstrings.
I
And
think that's what I need to probably work on more because I mean the difference between my low bar squat and my high bar is not that much, but my low bar should be much more if I know how to actually use all the posterior chain muscle in a synergistic manner.
yeah,
I feel like that's what it is. I don't know how to use them because I don't think they're weak. I can good morning substantial amount of load. Even my Nordic curls, like I have pretty
you have the
strong
Nordics
Nordic
too.
Nordic
You're right.
curls, but for hamstring to be able to do those, I would think I have pretty strong or decent hamstring
That's
strength,
true.
right?
So
So
maybe
I
it's
don't. So it's hard to wonder whether it's
yeah,
really the weakness of the posterior chain or just my nervous system not being able to
the scale
work
of
in
the movement
synergy.
too. It's weird, eh?
Yeah,
I guess,
yeah.
and I mean,
Because my accessories are pretty impressive when it comes to the volume and the nature of the movement that I can handle. Even uh, the 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 not the reverse hyperextension, the back extension that the Olympic lifters use, where you have your feet perched up and
mm,
you lean forward. It's a back
yeah,
extension,
yeah,
but from the deficit, like a high deficit. I've done that and I build up like up to like 125 for a set of 12s and even holding for 20 seconds, right? Like with 125 or 125 pound, like where your lower back has to over compensate gravity. Your glutes have to be strong, your core, your lower back have to be strong to be able to maintain the weight, because otherwise you're gonna fall back. I don't know if you picture the movement that I'm talking
I know. I
about.
think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've built a good amount of volume, and for somebody to do that, even a lot of the elite power lifters would not
Mm,
be able to do this accessory to that level. But still, when it comes down to the movement,
yeah.
I still fail to make it happen the way I'm supposed to. So it looks like something is missing in the chain that I need to figure. Once I maybe figure that out, everything is just gonna start as skyrocketing.
It's
Because I did the best of my ability what I could address. I probably need a third eye or fourth eye or fifth eye, but I have to rely on eyes that actually knows what's up,
yeah.
not just wannabe eyes who want to give you
You're able to do full on Nordic curls, but at the same
right.
time, you're not weak at your
Yeah.
deadlifts, and you have a
hmm
good squat too. So it's like, what is the missing link? Is it the glutes? Is it the lower back? Is it just the
Back,
skill
yeah.
itself? Like, what could it
hmm
be? And I guess
Yeah.
more time is the answer in this case. Because even
Yeah.
visually, it's kind of hard to spot what the problem
Right.
is.
What the problem is, you
Yeah.
see? It's just like I guess certain things you just have to keep training. That's what I know. That's what I
That's what it is.
figure.
Yeah.
I can't really look for excuses or any invisible reason. I just have to keep training the movement and keep training my system to be efficient at it. And yeah,
Yeah.
maybe when it clicks, it's gonna click, and then it's gonna unleash an avalanche of gains.
Exactly.
Who knows?
Well,
So we'll see.
I mean, you're definitely on the right path, and you're certainly much smarter now than you were
Then
years
I
back.
wear,
You've
yeah,
learned way more because
a lot more.
that's what you're trying to do. Always getting better, never regressing. So, with that, I'd like to ask you some more questions. In terms of weight training, are there some exercises that you found give really good carryover to weighted calisthenics? Because I've seen some guys recommend, like if you're trying to learn the planche or the Maltese, you take dumbbells, you lie down on a flat bench, and you raise them up in front of you like this with locked arms. So you build the tendon strength in your biceps, and apparently that helps the ring movements as well. I know
Mm.
you mentioned the overhead press didn't help your handstand work that much. Or what if I do a lot of incline curls with dumbbells? Would that help the pelican curl? So in your experience, are there some movements that you found are really beneficial in getting better at calisthenics?
Not that I can really think of, because I feel like to be good at those calisthenics movements, you have to train the movement themselves, and there's no way around it. Certainly, you have some freak of nature who can just try the first time and get it. But from my experience, using some, because there's some time I have tried to use some accessories to reinforce my skill work, it hasn't really been helpful. Like
Really?
that movement that you mentioned, I've tried that as well, but it's just that the the load will be uh,
Insignificant?
so insignificant because the planche itself, especially when you weigh and you have a lower body mass of that as hefty, it won't. I think that's probably the reason why I don't feel much of this movement being helpful. Maybe if I was much lighter and don't train legs, it could be a different story. Because uh, if I recall, some gymnasts, high-level gymnasts, use some of these movements. So
Mm.
it's not like something that calisthenics athletes have invented overnight. They just use some of the protocol that coaches like Summers and others have used for their athletes. So it does. I'm sure it will help, but from my experience, when I used it, if anything, it just beat me up much more than it should. You know,
Wow.
the straight arm, like the straight arm incline press that you incline like flies right upward that you, yeah, it didn't help me, and I can do a lot of weight on that.
That's true.
But however, it didn't help carry to the amount of scapular protraction and depression that I need to sustain my lower body because it's really a lot of work. I mean, and maybe I'm maybe limited my lower back strength because you need to have a lower back and glute strength that can support your legs, right? To do stuff like planche, or even front lever.
Mm.
So to bring back to what we just talked about earlier, who knows? As strong as my lower back and glutes are, maybe they're not strong enough to be able to sustain my leg size, because they are big. Obviously they're strong, but they're pretty big. I mean, because you have some who have strong legs who don't have as much size. But I do have the size. Probably that I don't with the strength that don't go with it, but the size is there for sure. So and that's genetics. I mean, to a certain extent. I mean, on top of the amount of volumes that I did thousands of pistol squat over the
That's
years.
crazy.
And that's super high volume and New York style training or bodyweight training that I did the first 3 years when I didn't touch any weight at all. All these things build some muscle mass, so it does work. High volume with bodyweight.
That's
My
true.
mistake was not to start the skill much earlier because I
Yeah.
do remember like when I was 168 and I tried the one arm chin up the first time. I went up. It was ugly, but I went up. So at that time, I was so limber and light that I could have really focused on periodizations and get a skill within a year or two. And that would be much easier now to maintain while, chasing
What's
extreme strength. But now I have to do everything, I mean, upside down. Like it's after getting the mass, how to get the skill is
It's a
it's
lot
a
harder.
whole lot harder, which is okay. It's fine. You make mistake, and which makes me excited when I program for my clients who wanna pretty much
Oh, they're where you were
wish
at.
goes like me. Yeah, because it's hard to find people who aspire to be like you, right? They have specific things. So I get it, like it's like a kid in a candy store. Because then I want to give them what I didn't focus on at the beginning of my journey, and it's been amazing so far. Like this one guy that I've been posting the progress, like we worked for a year, and it's been amazing, and he's been doing like awesome, man. I'm like, I wish I had that guidance when I first started, because now he doesn't have to make mistake, error, and trials, and I feel like yeah, he will get really strong, possibly stronger than I am.
Wow.
Even by the time 10 years of
He
training,
stays on
it's
the
only
same
been a
path.
year.
Yeah.
And if it's the same path, oh yeah. And
Yeah.
my dream is to have a disciple, right? Not necessarily client, because after a
Ah,
while of training with me, I'll do that for free. Then it become more like student and master thing, you know.
that's cool.
So, but until I build like a base where I can make a living, like a normal living, and we have to worry about stuff, then I will have to charge. So
Exactly.
that's when you know it's not just about the money. I love the craft. It's just that you have
Absolutely.
to make a living doing what you love. But ultimately, the dream will be to just make people reach heights that they never thought they would, which will happen. So I'm
Yeah.
excited about
Well,
it.
your
Yeah.
your your work speaks for itself, and you have the evidence with your clients. And yeah, it's
No. So yeah. So for the transference of the weight movement, I think it does work. But from my experience, no, none of them helped me so far. Even for the iron cross I've
so
been working on,
yeah.
my tendons, I've been doing a lot of volume, all kind of work. I even done some band work on the rings, and as much as I build a lot of volume, it's just something about when I reach that sticking point, my tendons are so inflamed that I cannot sustain that load. So I feel like I just had to play around with volume until I adapt to get strong enough to go down to that final position. But I feel like doing all this dumbbell work did not help. I had to work through the variation of the movement itself to
Okay.
get me
So
to
it's all
get me
about
there.
the
Yeah.
micro progression and getting very specific with those
Right.
lifts because
Mhm.
you can't equate it given the fact that we all have different leverages and you have bigger legs and you have a lot of muscle mass on you. You're doing this in reverse than from what most people start off with,
Mhm.
you know? So that in itself skews the process a bit too.
So I could find a use for this movement when, for me, for example, at the level that I am, I could not for the planche because I did train for my planche. Last time I tried to straddle almost a year. I haven't. It was really ugly,
Really?
but it would take me 3 weeks to get back to that. That's no big deal. But if you've been training, however, for my front lever, because I've been consistent at it, I could use some exercises that supposedly will help my front lever with external weight, right? Like doing some dumbbell work that could help with my front lever stuff. If it was proven by some people that it worked for them, I could add that to
Sure.
add some volume, some really mad weight, just stimulate the muscle there, add some type of hypertrophy that's needed as microscopic as it can be. Yes. Or for the very beginner who can even do like a tuck planche. Somebody who cannot even do like a tuck planche and just at the
Ah,
level of flesh, yeah, those can
okay, I see.
use this movement because they're just not there yet.
Yeah,
But for somebody who can go through the variation and just stick to the movement themselves, play with different variations and cycle them properly. Now, when you reach a high level of it and you're so close to it, you can then incorporate some external weight movement to kind of add because you're gonna require more work, right? To add volume without taxing yourself, you can use those movements while you're recovering from
interesting.
the yeah, because the movement itself or uh the those gymnastic move they are as taxing as powerlifting move because it's all your nervous system is always a high level of demand. I think that's one reason why as well it was hard to chase both those skill and do powerlifting movement. It's pretty much doing twice as much
Oh,
powerlifting movement.
I
Because they're
see.
always taxing. Like even the one I'm doing now, like those weighted pull up, I think is very demanding.
It is, yeah.
I mean, because you're moving through space on my upper body there, at least for the powerlifters going for conjugate, they're laying on the bench. So it's different, right? You're not, your body is not demanding as much stabilization. Whether
That's
it's for weighted pull up or weighted dip, I keep moving. So I use more of my resources to perform. Even for the accessories, I keep moving. So I've been using a lot of my resources. So I think as it is much harder for sure to do that, to juggle those than juggling like a classic
right.
powerlifting, yeah,
And that's why you have
movement.
to pay so much attention to recovery and why you've been
Oh
doing
yeah.
breaks and everything. I know what you mean. Like especially the ring dips. If you max out on those, you're fried after. Even ring
Hmm.
pull-ups are surprisingly challenging when you go weighted. And then the front lever, you can only handle so many sets before you just can't do them at all.
Stuck in there.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
even the one-arm pull-ups, after a few sets of those, you're
Yeah,
done. You know, you can't even do inverted rows are hard after. So
exactly.
it forces you to be very meticulous with your exercise selection. And I guess what you're saying is with those little small movements, you can use that if your recovery is overburdened. You know,
Mhm. Yeah,
to supplement, like if your tendons are a bit beat up, then you could do a bit of that stuff. But it might not
right.
give you the best carryover compared to practicing
Carry
more.
over.
But it's still better
No,
to include a little bit than just
right.
leave that extra recovery on tap.
Exactly. Because everything is about manipulating that recovery, man.
Yeah.
If you can just train hard and it's, I mean, ever recovering, like on that, oh man, you'll be the strongest person alive. But there's so much you can take on, too much beating you can take on your body
Yeah.
and
And
recover from.
and
So,
what's cool about you're not doing this as like as an 18-year-old. You know, you've been at this
mm,
for years, and you have family duties. You work hard in your job, right? And you're
mhm.
kicking ass in the gym at the same time. And you're only getting older, but you're getting better.
Yeah,
So
I'm getting better. Yeah.
that's
I'm 30, I'm 35 now and just
you
getting
know
better. Better than when I started when I was
and
25.
that's crazy
So,
because people will think at
yeah.
35 your recovery is going to be that much worse than at
Hmm.
25, but because
I
you
mean,
work
I'm
smarter,
sure it's worse, but it's well better managed.
it's better managed
If I
because you're
had
smarter.
if I had the knowledge that I have now, oh man, I would have made leaps of progress managing my recovery back then when I was just training all out
Yeah.
without any worry or recovery or any periodization. I just go in,
Exactly.
and it's interesting.
It
But
is.
it was good. It was all
It's
fun.
it's crazy how we become our most informed after we made all the mistakes, and now we're a little bit older, and
Mistakes.
it's like, wow, imagine we would have started doing this right off the
But,
bat. First 2 years of training, everything perfect, all the lessons we know now. It's like, shit, man. After 5 years, we've been. I don't even
but
want
I
to
think we didn't
imagine.
have as much information
It wasn't
online
there,
too.
right?
It wasn't there. So people now who starting, they are very lucky to to take the bull by the horns as soon as possible.
Agreed.
Hopefully they make good use of it. I think that's the problem with certain people. The ego won't let them hire a coach. They think because and the thing is they're not even that superb of athletes. If myself after like 10 years I was able to I mean, no, 8 years, I was able to hire a
And
coach
still
because I
consider
felt that I needed. I mean, yeah, it's a smart thing to do, and look what it got me. It changed my perspective, and yeah, nobody's ever beyond having a coach, right?
that's
But
true.
a lot of people think they are better than that just because it belittled them to ask
Yeah.
for somebody.
Yeah,
You know,
it's kind of a
it's just
contradiction
crazy.
in the sense that people will watch videos all day, but then they won't hire that same individual, but they'll watch hundreds of
Hmm.
videos. It's
Under
like they're
the
still learning
video.
from them. So,
Because their idea is they try to retro engineer it. And there's so much you can do to retro engineer. And I get that often, right? People would ask me questions. I can see where they're coming from or where they're going. They want to see pick my brain, which is fine.
but you can
But they
only
do
do
that every year very often. It gets annoying. And because I'm so polite, I'm like, I think if you realize by now that you might need a coach, and obviously they're not gonna go for it because either they don't have the finance, which I doubt because you can sacrifice a lot if you
Always,
really
yeah.
believe in something. Oh, it's just the ego thing. You think you're smarter. You just want to retro engineer. I mean, experience and knowledge cannot be bought. You just acquire it, and it is what it is. But people like to just ask you questions all the time, and I'm like, you guys. That's why you're still at the level you are, because you just can't lower yourself to figure that you need some help. Just trying to figure out asking questions is good, but if you're gonna do that your whole life, then it's no longer what you call uh,
So it wouldn't be productive.
it's a disservice. It's a disservice to yourself, you know.
I agree.
So,
You gotta humble yourself and know when you need help. And if that
mhm,
requires coaching or getting a program or just being
mhm,
with someone who knows a little bit more, and it doesn't have to
right.
be long
Not
term. Just
that
get a
that
little
much.
bit of experience
Or
with them
somebody
first.
that you respect as
Someone you
well. I
respect
think it
and
has to be something
trust.
that you respect. Yeah,
Yes.
and I think for me the respect is respect, honor is everything to me. Integrity is everything. So I feel a little offended when somebody feel that they don't respect me enough to hire me, but want to pick my brain. I don't think they think that way, but
That's how you
that's my
interpret it, yeah.
sense. That's how my sense turn on, and it gets really annoying because I really believe in respect, and that's another that's another story.
I
So
feel you.
yeah, that's usually how things go. Yeah.
Awesome.
So
So then I wanted to ask you, I noticed that right now you're not in a shredded state. Do you notice a big
yeah.
difference in your calisthenics performance?
Yeah. Calisthenics performance is always like stuff like the muscle up where you have to explode and still maintain the pelvis in the same position. It's a lot more demanding when you're much heavier.
Okay.
But again, you have freaks out there who do it. That's why I actually didn't I didn't strive for that anymore because I knew that I could do it. I just have to do it regardless
You
of
just gotta
the
get stronger,
weight
and
that
that's
I had.
it.
I just gotta get stronger. So I didn't worry much about that aspect anymore. Just keep training. And in time, when I feel like I wanna get to the shredded state, that might be a bonus. Like I will be much lighter and performance will be there. As opposed to forcing the shred and lose power at the same time. So it would be like a slow cut if I was to do it again, right? And which is what I've been doing now. Like I just incorporate elliptical a little more than usual. And yeah, so far I've been training down and losing few pounds and until I get below 190. I know if I reach 188 at the state that I am, I would definitely be looking shredded. Like
Right.
yeah, because
So
188 back then would be much shredded if I'm 188 right now. And I think the reason why it's hard to lose is because I'm fairly lean already.
yes.
Whatever makes me not look shredded is the water retention, and all of us we retain water differently, so it makes me look fluffy as opposed to hard and and dry. But if I was to flex and hang on the ball, for example,
Yeah, you could see
with
that.
extreme amount, I can see that I'm still kind of
Okay,
lean.
so you're basically just a few pounds away, and this extra weight allows you to
Yeah.
recover a bit better from powerlifting, and it's more specific to what you're trying to do now. And if you do have to shred down, well, the performance is going to be there regardless, so it
Yes.
doesn't really matter.
Doesn't.
That's
Yeah.
cool, man.
Exactly.
So then, how about we wrap up this discussion?
Okay.
One thing that keeps coming up is the concept of discipline, mindset, the grind, staying hard, never giving up, right? And
Mm.
what I want to know from you is what keeps you hungry? At 35 years old, with all these things that you're dealing with, you got clients, you're working hard, you're working on yourself, you got your family life. What keeps that
Mm.
drive high, the fire in you?
I think the ultimate fire is to be the baddest human being alive that I can be at the best of my ability. If I had all the genetic potential to me become the baddest human on earth, would I be able to? Possibly not, but I won't know until I keep pushing, right?
Thought it is.
So that's the thing, because I believe with the work ethic I have and the amount of knowledge that I've accumulated, I would be the baddest human on earth if I had all the God gift that I was supposed to. I mean, not supposed to, but that I was supposed to have to reach that level. But I'm gonna keep pushing as if I have those gifts and see what is gonna be at the end of the journey. That's the ultimate thing. Like if I didn't have a family and if I didn't have, work. And then the second drive is because I want to use that as as the what you call the pool of knowledge to help as many people as possible. I'm like the ultimate guinea pig, and I can use that to help as many people as possible, and I just in the process making a living to be able to leave something for my offspring, and in the process building a legacy because we're not eternal. It can be just gone like that, right? So
Yeah.
I have that all the time in mind. So anytime I train, I push. I never skip a training. Like when it's scheduled, it had to be. So it became so automatic that sometimes, yeah, why am I even doing? I'm not getting ready for any competition. I have a job that if I was to stop training, I would still have clients because my clients don't the one-on-one client, they really don't care how strong you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe online people can base on your strength to hire you, but the people that that are trained, that I get most of my income from, they don't really care. But I guess for me, to let them know that I require only like a hundredth of whatever I'm able to accomplish makes me more have an authority to demand more of them, right? I think that's an advantage of that. But yeah, like the second, I mean the first will be the baddest human being. The second being to use that knowledge to help as many people as possible and hopefully have somebody with better potential than me that can make me realize the dream that I may not be able to reach because I may not just have the potential to work with. So I'm gathering the knowledge so that if I get to put my hand on that potential with the knowledge that I have, we're gonna make an ultimate human being.
Wow.
So that will be a gift for me before I leave this earth. So that's I think the reason why I keep doing what I do, and I like it. So
Me too.
yeah,
Well,
it's a little bit of everything.
so it sounds like elevation on every possible level, not only for you and being the badass, the most badass version you could be, but in helping others as well. And you can tell that you're
Yeah.
passionate about this
Yeah, because
lifestyle.
you got to help. You have to help people. 'Cause like we talked earlier about, nobody really cares about how strong you are. You may have, okay, oh man, this guy's a monster. Well, after that, they go back to their own life. They have a lot of issues they have to deal with. They don't Your strength don't stay in their mind within the next 3 minutes or 5 minutes, you're gone.
Exactly.
So people don't really worry much about how strong or how great you are at this and that if you're not helping people.
What
So
they care
that's
about
what people
is the impact that you left on them, and that's
that
why
you
the
left on
legacy
them.
is so important. So
Hmm.
we hear of the greats passing away, and none of what is being described about them is how big their muscles were. It's, oh,
Hmm.
this person was a great man. He helped me out.
Hmm.
I got fit because of this person. Look at the knowledge I
Hmm.
received. And that's
Yeah.
basically what you're doing. You're using yourself as a guinea pig in the sense that you have the experience and you're always trying to learn, but then you're not just hogging it to yourself and being this egotistical guy that's, hey, look at me. You're passing it back to community, and you want
Hmm.
someone with higher potential that can also absorb that information and may the chain continue, or however it
Yep.
plays out. But the point is, there's
Yeah.
a greater purpose that goes beyond superficial reasons, and that's
Beyond superficial. Yeah.
exactly, and that's something to be
Yeah.
respected, and it goes back to what you believe in as being good ideals. So that's awesome, man.
Yeah. It was awesome. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And
So
hopefully someday we can get to train together.
I would love that, man. It'd be so much fun. Do some
Right.
dips and pull-ups, one rep maxes.
There's
Let's
some
go.
pull-ups
Scale
and
work,
a little bit
everything.
of bench here and there, I guess. With getting a world as well and see how it feels. Why not? It will be fun, man.
Absolutely.
Hopefully, these pandemic restrictions will be lifted soon enough
Uh,
that we get back to
when the restrictions
normality.
are done, bro, I'd be game, man. We can definitely plan that
Yeah,
out, and I think the viewers would like it too. So
yeah,
that
definitely. That
that would
would.
be a hell of an experience. So that's about it for today. Amazing chat.
Okay.
Loved every second of it. Is there anything you'd like to end off this video with, or share some of where people can reach you for either coaching or a site or whatever? Where can people find you?
Uh, Well, my website is under reconstruction at the moment, but they can find me on Meckanimal, whether it's on YouTube or Instagram, Meckanimal, Meckanimal. And for those uh, in what you call in quest of hiring a coach, you can reach me through mechanical@gmail.com. That's usually what the handle that I put at the end of my videos, on my log videos. So it's not hidden, it's up out there. I would just say take a look on my YouTube channel, Mechanical channel, and you always make sure that you shout me out at any opportunity that you find fit in your videos, and that proves that I do watch your content because I'm
Yeah,
always
yeah.
able to
I see you.
figure out whenever you talk about me, I'm like, okay, yeah, he got me a shout out there. So it's always an honor, and I'm glad that you do so. I really appreciate your support, and from day one, yeah, I pretty much the only one I think in it's not even like in the calisthenics world, like I guess in the hybrid community, yeah, I'm a little closed, not too out there, but still, I feel like a lot of people out there either they're intimidated, they don't want me to take a shine, and I'm gonna throw it out there because that's what I feel like. Like some people that you feel like good with you, but they're just trying to avoid you. Like, or either they feel like they're not gonna gain anything from you because you don't have enough following, but I mean, if you feel like you're a good friend enough, it shouldn't be a problem, right, to feature that fellow friend in your channel, unless you're intimidated, you feel like they're gonna take your shine for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But your fans are your fans. They're not gonna. Nobody can steal your fans. If anything, you can benefit
Just
from
grow
the other
stronger.
person fans, even if it's 100 people from the other guy that nobody knows you still benefit from it. And but some people they're just all about marketing, man. As long as you're not gonna benefit them, they're not really gonna mind it. They're gonna just keep playing games, and I don't have time for all these things. So I just stay in my lane. I do what I got to do, and I deal with people who are cool with me because I know it's just a matter of time, man. Provided we live long enough, Mechanical will be known and remember. That's 100%
Absolutely.
guaranteed, 100%. And I'm not really worried about it.
That's all good. If you know
Yeah,
you're on
but
the right path,
I
there's
do
nothing to stress
appreciate,
about.
yeah. Yeah, I do the right thing. That's all I care about. Do good by people and know that people will not talk shit about me and I'll defend my character because I make sure my character is intact anytime I deal with people,
Oh yeah.
and that's all. That's all that I really care deeply about. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate what you do as well, and thank you for that. Let's see, for part three, will come out.
Yeah, part three will come out possibly at the end of the year. I think we've just been postponing stuff. Hopefully, we can get it close enough so we don't have too much to talk about and be able to talk about things in a more concise way
Yeah, yeah.
and not to clutter people because when it's too long before, then we have a lot to gather. And nowadays, with the world of low attention span, it will be hard for people to digest super long unless you're a Joe Rogan or something or such.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
unless you
why.
have some loyal followers as well, which I do believe you do, and which are mine as well. Even if it's 50 people who are gonna stick and watch, they will watch the whole thing, and
Oh yeah.
that's really interesting to see that,
Well,
you know.
I'm sure people are gonna download this right now, and while they're doing their cardio or they're working out, instead of music, this is
Yeah,
what they play, and that's it. It may take them a few workouts
exactly.
to complete it, but it'll get done. So it's all
Get
good.
that.
The info is there if they want to hear it. So
Yes, sir.
that's it. So thank you, Meckanimal. Again, if you guys want to check him out, links will be in the description box. I think you won't be disappointed. So enjoy, and we'll see you around.